Hey guys, tonight we push past the doorman and the lone diamonds and the crane-delivered Christmas trees into one of the most glamorous, most exhausting, and most quietly brutal jobs in modern history, being the wife of a 1980s Wall Street titan. Not a job with a salary, not a job with a title, not a job you could ever quit. A job where the pay was a photograph, the office was a French restaurant, and the performance review ran every morning in the gossip column. Before we drop into it, it's genuinely good to have you along. If these quiet visits to the past are the thing that finally lets your brain clock out, the subscribe button and a like are a lovely way to say so. And I would love to hear, down below, the one absurd luxury you would buy if being rich were, as one of these women put it, expensive. Then get comfortable. Kill the lights, get the fan going, pull the blanket up over your shoulders, and maybe skip the midnight snack tonight, purely for research. In solidarity with women who considered 2 forkfuls of pasta a full meal. Now, how exactly do you throw a party that costs more than a house and still lose? What exactly a refrigerator in the bathroom is for? Who was maintaining the national supply of borrowed diamonds? Whether anyone in these rooms ever actually ate a sandwich? Why the husbands paid for the galas and then refused to attend them? How it feels to read a stranger's verdict on your own dinner party before your coffee is even poured? And could you survive a marriage where your entire future was decided by a document you signed before the cake was cut? Congratulations. You just woke up in Manhattan, 1987. Your husband left before dawn and may not come home. Your dress is worth more than a car and expires at midnight. And somewhere across the ballroom, a woman 15 years younger has just smiled at him. Good luck. You wake in the dark, in a Fifth Avenue apartment the size of a small hotel, and the first thing you do is manufacture a lie. By the time anyone else stirs, the coffee must be brewing, the flowers must be fresh, the staff must be in position, and the household must appear to run itself by magic. Your husband is already gone, or never came home. Your job, before the sun clears the park, is to make an enormous machine look effortless, and to make yourself look like you are not running it. The lie has a schedule, and the schedule starts in the dark. Somewhere below you, the cook is already awake, because the illusion requires that bread appear to bake itself and coffee appear to brew out of pure goodwill. You are the director of a production in which the audience must never see the crew. The whole trick of the morning is that the labor stays invisible, like a swan doing something frantic and undignified underwater while gliding across the surface with a serene, blank, and unbothered expression. Mrs. Alvarez, your housekeeper, moves through the front rooms, straightening things that are already straight. She plumps a cushion nobody has sat on since the last party, straightens a stack of magazines no one will read, and moves on. The rooms are supposed to look as though they were arranged by angels and then abandoned in a hurry. You check the flowers first, because the flowers are a clock. Fresh arrangements announce that the household is running perfectly. One drooping stem announces that something is slipping, and slipping is the single thing you are not permitted to do. The florist comes twice a week, which is more often than your husband comes home. You have noticed this, and decided not to take it out and look at it before breakfast. His side of the bed is a diplomatic document. He left in the dark, in a car idling downstairs, bound for a floor of a building where he conducts most of his actual life. Or he did not come home, and there is a version of this morning where you decline, briskly and without commentary, to ask which it was. You have learned to treat the empty side the way you treat the weather. You observe it. You do not argue with it. Arguing with the weather is how women in this building end up in the columns. The coffee is the first real test of the day. It must be waiting when he would want it, whether or not he is here to want it, because readiness is the whole religion. Everything in these rooms exists in a state of permanent preparation for a man who is statistically unlikely to appear. You are running a hotel with 1 guest, a phantom guest, and a 5-star rating you can't afford to lose. Then there is you. Before the staff fully wakes, before the phone starts, before the day's first appointment, you have to become the version of yourself the world is allowed to see. The woman who wakes in the dark is not the woman who leaves the building. The gap between the two of them is your actual profession, and you close it every single morning with the grim efficiency of a factory that manufactures 1 flawless product a day, and the product is you. By the time the light comes up over the park, the machine is humming and no one can see your hands on it. The coffee steams. The lilies stand at attention. Mrs. Alvarez has vanished into the back the way good magic vanishes its wires. You stand in the middle of a set that looks like it built itself, dressed as a woman who does nothing, having already done everything. It is not yet 8, and you have been at work for hours, and nobody will ever know. You pour the first cup of coffee you will actually drink, standing up, and go to get dressed. You sit at the vanity while it is still dark and begin the day's real work, which is holding off time by hand. There is a standing appointment for your hair, a regimen for your skin, and a mirror lit so carefully that it flatters and never accuses. Every line is inventoried. Every shadow is a threat to be managed. The face that leaves this room in an hour is not the one that entered it, and the difference between the two is the difference between keeping your place and losing it. The lighting is the first weapon, and you chose it yourself, the way a general chooses ground. It is warm, soft, and forgiving, coming from the sides, because light from above digs shadows under the eyes, and light from the front tells the truth, and the truth is not welcome at this hour. A harsh bulb in this room would be an act of sabotage. You have arranged the mirror to be a flatterer, a courtier, a small devoted liar that greets you every morning and tells you what you need to hear to walk out the door. The regimen has the structure of a religious service. There is an order to the creams, and the order is not negotiable, and each jar costs more than the salary of the girl who dusts the frames it sits among. You apply them in sequence with the solemn concentration of a chemist who suspects the formula might be a bit of a fraud, but is far too invested to stop now. Somewhere in a laboratory, a marketing department is very grateful for you. Monsieur Georges arrives to do your hair, and Monsieur Georges is an artist, a confessor, and a spy, in roughly that order. He teases the hair up and out into the architecture the decade demands, a structure with genuine engineering to it, held aloft by product and conviction and a fine mist of something flammable. He works in silence, then in gossip, and the gossip is the actual service. George tips your chin toward the light and studies the angle. He knows things. He hums while he sprays, a man laying bricks on top of your skull, and he will carry whatever you say today to 3 other vanities before lunch. The hair, when he finishes, is taller than some of your problems and more reliable than your husband. It does not move in wind. It does not flag by evening. Then the face itself. The war proper. You inventory the new evidence overnight, the faint line that was not there in spring, the softness at the jaw that the light is struggling to argue with. You do not panic. Panic is for amateurs. You simply make a note, the way an accountant notes a number that will need addressing, and the addressing, you already know, will eventually involve a surgeon and a season spent quietly out of view. For now, there is paint, and paint is the cheap solution, so you apply it. The whole operation is aimed at a single invisible opponent, which is the younger woman who does not yet exist in your life but certainly exists in the world. She is out there, unlined, uncreamed, requiring none of this, and she is the reason the mirror must lie, and the light must be kind, and the creams must be applied in the correct devotional order. Every cream, every appointment, every quiet correction is aimed at a rival you have never met, sold to you by people who profit, whether or not you win. By the time you rise from the vanity, the sky is going grey over the park, and the woman in the mirror is finished, sealed, presentable, deployed. She looks like she woke up this way. That is the entire point, and it is a lie. And the lie took an hour and a small fortune and a French artist humming over your scalp. You stand, you check the seams of the illusion one last time, and you go out to be looked at. You are hungry, and being hungry is the point. Before the day has properly begun, you have already done the calculation that governs everything else, which is how little you can eat and still stand upright through a 4-hour benefit tonight. The scale is a colleague and an enemy. The clothes that define your standing are cut for a body with almost no flesh on it, so the flesh has to go. You have not eaten a full meal in longer than you can comfortably remember, and you have stopped counting. The scale lives in the dressing room and it has opinions. You step on it the way other people check the news, first thing, braced for what it will say. It is not a scale so much as a small daily judge, weighing you in the most literal sense and handing down a verdict that will colour the next 16 hours. A quarter pound the wrong way is not a number. It is a mood, a threat, a reason to skip the toast you were never going to eat anyway. The math is simple and merciless. The gown for tonight was fitted to a body that does not eat, so the body can't eat, or the gown will report you. Fabric is an informer, a waistband that pulls, a seam that strains, a line that breaks where it should fall clean. All of it tells the room that you have lost control, and control is the only currency that never inflates. So You calculate backward from the dress, and the dress says no. Breakfast, such as it is a performance for an audience of one, which is you. Black coffee, half a grapefruit, and the grapefruit is aspirational. You arrange it on the plate so it looks like a decision rather than a sentence. Somewhere in America, a family is eating pancakes the size of hubcaps, and you think about them with the wistful longing of a woman watching a train she is no longer allowed to board. Your friend Deborah, thinner even than you, eats an almond at lunch and pushes it around the plate first, as though warming it up. She has the discipline of a monk and the appetite of a houseplant, and she is held up, quietly, as the standard. She is what the writers will call a social X-ray. A woman so reduced that light seems to pass through her, dressed in something puffy and elaborate to disguise the fact that there is very little left underneath. She is admired. She is also, if you look closely, exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. The hunger becomes a companion after a while, a low hum under everything, like a refrigerator you have stopped hearing until it clicks off and the silence startles you. You have negotiated a truce with it. It does not go away. It simply agrees not to make a scene, provided you feed it the occasional token, a bite here, a nibble there, enough to keep the machine from collapsing on a marble floor in front of 300 people, which would be far worse than the hunger itself. Anorexia has just in this decade been written into the medical books for the first time, given a name and a page, as though naming it made it a condition rather than a lifestyle. But in these rooms, it is not a diagnosis. It is an aspiration. It is discipline made visible, willpower you can see from across a ballroom, and the women who have it are envied by the women who are still, embarrassingly, occasionally eating dinner. So you go into the daylight, hollow and correct, a woman doing sums with her own body as the ledger. The gown will fit, the seams will lie flat. The room will read you as controlled, and controlled is the whole performance. And late tonight, home at last, you will stand in the dark kitchen and eat something standing up, quickly, guiltily, the way you do everything you actually want, before the machine resets and the arithmetic starts again at dawn. You stand in front of a closet that is closer to a small department store, and you make a decision that is really a chess move. The suit you pick will be read by everyone you meet before you say a word. There is a correct designer for lunch, a correct one for the museum board, a correct one for being seen leaving the building. Adolfo says one thing, Bill Blass says another, and a wrong choice says you are slipping, you are not getting dressed. You are choosing a uniform for a war nobody admits is happening. The closet is organized like a filing system, because it is one. Day suits on the left, evening on the right, the untouchable couture pieces sleeved in muslin like relics in a small chapel. Each garment is a sentence in a language everyone in your world speaks fluently and no one ever writes down. The tweed says one thing. The bright wool says another. The message is coded, precise, and instantly legible. The colour you wear on a Tuesday will be discussed on a Wednesday, and you know this, so you choose the way a diplomat chooses words before a summit. An Adolfo suit is the safe declaration, the one that says you know exactly who you are and require no one's approval, which is of course the surest sign that you require everyone's. The First Lady wears them. The Saks counter reportedly could not keep them in stock, and putting one on is like producing a passport at a border. It gets you waved through. It also announces the border exists, and that you have papers, and that some women, tragically, do not. The suit for lunch must be sharp but not triumphant, because arriving at Le Cirque overdressed is its own confession. A woman trying too hard, and trying is the one thing that must never show. The whole aesthetic is effort disguised as ease, sprezzatura in shoulder pads, a look that took 3 hours, and a personal shopper to appear thrown on. If anyone can see the work has failed, which is a rule you also apply to your face, your marriage, and your entire life. Adele, your maid, lays out 3 options across the bed and waits, because she has learned that this is not a question with an obvious answer. She stands with her hands folded, a woman presenting evidence to a judge, and she does not offer an opinion, because an opinion is above her station, and frankly, above yours too on a bad day. You look at the 3 suits the way you look at 3 roads, knowing that one of them ends in a photograph you will regret and the other 2 are merely survivable. The shoulders are the architecture of the decade, and yours must be correct, structured, assertive, wide enough to carry the weight of an appearance and the room's judgment at the same time. You are building a silhouette that says power, borrowed power, worn on your own frame as though it grew there. The padding does a great deal of lifting. So do you. And there is the colour problem, always the colour problem. Red is a statement and a target. Black is safe and possibly funereal. Beige disappears. And disappearing, in this world, is the beginning of the end, because a woman no one notices is a woman no one seats well, and a woman no one seats well is halfway to being nobody at all. You choose the blue glass in the end, because it is correct for a museum morning and forgiving of the fact that you have not eaten, and Adele nods once, the nod of a woman who agrees but would never say so. You step into it, and the transformation completes. You are armoured now. You are legible. You are ready to be read by every eye between here and 65th Street, and the reading, if you have chosen well, will come back in your favour. It usually does. That is the whole grim point of choosing so carefully in the first place. You confirm a lunch reservation at Le Cirque and feel the small cold drop in your stomach that comes every single time. The table you are given today is a public verdict on where you stand this week. A good banquet means you are ascending. A table near the kitchen means someone has decided you are finished. You have not eaten there in peace in years because the meal is not the meal. The meal is a scoreboard, and you are about to walk in and read your own number in front of everyone. The restaurant sits on East 65th Street and it runs on one currency, which is proximity. The good tables are the banquets along the wall where you can see the whole room and, more importantly, the whole room can see you. The bad tables are in the back, in the culinary equivalent of exile, near the swinging door where the waiters emerge like startled birds. Everyone who walks in performs the same quick, involuntary calculation of where they have been placed, and what it means, and who saw. Sirio Maxioni runs the room, and Sirio is the true power in your life, more than your husband, possibly more than God, because God does not decide your banquet. He is there 6 days a week, lunch and dinner, a small, elegant and unhurried man with the memory of an elephant and the diplomatic instincts of a Renaissance cardinal. He greets you, or he does not. He lingers, or he moves on, and the whole room reads the length of his hello the way sailors read the sky. The tables are famously, absurdly close together, 2 or 3 inches apart, packed in like a subway car for people who have never taken the subway. When someone important arrives unexpectedly, Sirio simply has the staff lift a table and its occupants and slide them over to make room, mid-meal, mid-sentence, mid-bite. His defense of the crowding is a question he actually asked out loud. Would you rather be 8 inches from the King of Spain, or 2? You have decided not to have an opinion, because the honest answer involves your knees against a stranger's for 90 minutes. Your friend Barbara was seated by the door once, on a bad day, and she talked about it for a month with the wounded bewilderment of a woman who had been slapped in public by an invisible hand. She had done nothing. That was the terror of it. The demotion came without warning or explanation, a verdict from a court with no visible judge, and she spent weeks reviewing her recent behaviour for the crime she must have committed. She never found it. Sometimes there is no crime. Sometimes the room simply cools on you, like weather. So you arrive, and you hand over your coat, and you walk towards Sirio with your face arranged into serene confidence while every nerve waits to learn your fate. He smiles. Sirio takes your arm. He walks you, and the walk itself is the announcement, and you read his direction like a woman reading a jury's faces as they file back in. Left, toward the wall, toward the light, toward the good banquet. You have been acquitted for another week. You sit, and you exhale, and the exhale is the only honest thing you will do all afternoon. The relief is enormous and completely disproportionate to a lunch, but it is not a lunch. It is a standing you have to renew daily, a membership with no permanent card, a position defended one seating at a time against rivals who would happily watch you drift toward the swinging door. The menu arrives, and you will not really read it, because you already know you are having the sole and 3 bites of it. The food is beside the point. The point was the walk across the room, and you won it today, and tomorrow you will do it again, handing over your coat, watching Sirio's face to see which way he turns. You order lunch that you have no intention of eating, and you perform the eating anyway. 2 forkfuls of the pasta, then the fork goes down, and the rest is pushed politely toward the rim of the plate where it will be taken away untouched. The leaving is the message. A woman who cleans her plate has announced that she can't control herself, and control is the entire game. So you sit over a plate of food you are not allowed to want, in a room full of women doing exactly the same thing, and you talk. The ordering itself is a small piece of theatre. You request the pasta primavera, the dish the restaurant more or less invented, and you request it with enthusiasm, as though you intend to have a relationship with it. The waiter knows better. He brings the plate with a straight face, a professional participating in a shared fiction, and he will remove it 20 minutes later at the same weight, which he does without comment, because comment is above his pay and beneath the dignity of the room. The conversation is the actual meal, and you consume it hungrily because it is the one thing at the table with real calories. Who is up? Who is down? Whose husband was seen where with whom, and whether it means anything. It arrives in courses, this talk, appetizer, gossip, and then the main dishing, and then a light dessert of pure speculation, and everyone leaves full, sated, and better informed. You could survive a week on a single good lunch's worth of information. Across from you sits Nan, who is thinner than seems structurally advisable, and Nan eats nothing with a serenity that borders on the spiritual. She once, legend has it, was refused a table for wearing trousers, and rather than surrender the reservation, she removed the trousers and wore the long tunic as a dress, sailing in on sheer nerve. You admire her enormously. She is a woman who has never once let a rule, a garment, or a meal defeat her, and she radiates the calm of someone who decided long ago that food was simply a category of thing that happened to other people. The trick of eating without eating is technique, and you have it down. You cut the food into architecture. You move it around the plate into new and pleasing configurations, a small edible landscaping project. You lift the fork often and complete the journey to your mouth rarely, and in between you gesture with it, because a fork in motion looks like a fork in use. Your hands are busy, your plate is full. Nothing has actually entered you but coffee and information. There is a hierarchy even in the not eating, and everyone can read it. The woman who orders a salad has surrendered a little. The woman who orders the pasta and abandons it has shown discipline under temptation, which ranks higher, the way resisting a bank vault ranks higher than resisting an empty room. You ordered the pasta. You are winning a contest that has no prize and no name and no end, against opponents who are also your only friends. And yet there is a real pleasure in it, buried under the performance. The room is beautiful in its rosy light, the company is sharp, the talk is quick, and for 2 hours you are somewhere that everyone in the city would like to be, doing the thing the whole city pretends not to want to do. You are being seen. You are being counted. You are, for the length of a lunch, undeniably somebody. Then it ends. The plates go back barely disturbed, the check is handled by mysterious arrangement, and you rise and gather your coat and step out onto 65th Street lighter than you arrived, in every sense. You are hungry. You are informed. You are victorious over a plate of pasta. And you will do it all again tomorrow, at a different table, in a different suit, with the same fork moving and the same food untouched. You stand on a low platform in a hushed salon while a fitter kneels at your feet with pins held between her lips. The gown being built around you costs roughly the price of a new car, and it will be worn once, tonight, and then quietly retired because it has already been photographed. You can't appear in the same dress twice in front of the same cameras. So you are being fitted for a garment with the useful lifespan of an afternoon, and you are doing this again next week and the week after that. The salon is quiet the way a chapel is quiet, carpeted and cool, smelling of new fabric and chalk and the good coffee they bring you in a cup you will not drink from because it might mark the silk. You stand very still on the platform, arms slightly out, in the pose every woman learns eventually, the pose of a person being assembled. Miss Dumont, the fitter, kneels at the hem with pins between her lips and does not speak, because speaking would mean opening her mouth, and her mouth is currently a pincushion. She works around you in a slow circle, tugging, smoothing, marking, her hands quick and sure and entirely uninterested in your opinion, which is correct, because your opinion is not required. The fabric goes on in layers, and each layer has its own sensation. The cold slither of the beaded bodice lowered over your head like a suit of very expensive armour. The whisper of the taffeta skirt settling into place, the small cold kisses of the pins going in at the waist, close to the skin, a reminder to hold still that you feel more than here. You breathe shallowly, because a deep breath moves the line, and the line is the whole thing. The price is not discussed, because discussing it would be vulgar, and so it simply accretes, quietly, on an account somewhere, a number climbing in a ledger you prefer not to open. $20,000, give or take, for a dress that will live for one evening, and then vanish into a garment bag forever, a butterfly with a single night to be a butterfly. You do the sum once, are briefly appalled, and then put it away with the other sums you have agreed not to do before dark. What makes it sting, if you let it, is the permanence of the impermanence. It is one gown in a season of gowns, each worn once, each retired the moment a photographer captures it, because the newspapers and the columns have long memories, and a woman photographed twice in the same dress has confessed to a kind of poverty. So the closet fills with beautiful corpses, worn once, mourned never, and you keep ordering new ones, because the alternative is to stop appearing, and to stop appearing is to stop existing. Miss Dumont sits back on her heels and studies you, and the studying is the verdict, and it is the only opinion in the room that counts. She nods, once, a small, precise nod, and reaches up to adjust a single fold at your hip that you could not have seen and would not have thought to fix. The gown settles. Something clicks into place, some geometry between fabric and body that either works or does not, and when it works, as it does now, you can feel it, a rightness, a line that runs unbroken from shoulder to floor. You look at yourself in the tall mirror and you are, briefly, magnificent. A woman in a dress worth a small fortune, built by hand, fitted to the quarter-inch, doomed to a single outing. It is beautiful. It is absurd. It is the most expensive disposable object you own, and you own many. You will wear it tonight, dazzle for 4 hours, hand it to a garment bag at dawn, and never touch it again. And next week you will stand on this platform, and Miss Dumont will kneel, and it will begin again. You open the case and consider the necklace, and the first thing you think about is whether it belongs to you. Some of what you wear is owned, some is loaned by the jeweller for the evening, and some is borrowed against a future you do not fully control. The pieces come out of a vault, get logged, and go back the next morning, and the insurance man knows more about your throat than your husband does. You are about to walk into a room glittering with things you will hand back at dawn, and no one is supposed to know which. The jeweller sends the pieces over by messenger in the afternoon, in a case that looks unremarkable, and travels with a man whose job is to look equally unremarkable while carrying more value than the building. The diamonds arrive on approval, which is a polite commercial word for a loan with excellent manners. You may wear them tonight. You may be photographed in them, which is precisely what the jeweller is counting on, because a diamond seen on the right throat at the right benefit sells 3 more like it by Friday. The necklace itself is cold when you first put it on, shockingly cold. A little river of ice laid against the collarbone that warms slowly to your skin over the first hour, as though deciding, grudgingly, to accept you. It is heavier than it looks. Beauty at this level is heavy, dense, and real, and by the end of the night your neck will ache from the privilege of it, a small, honest pain under all the glitter. Mr. Feldman, who handles these arrangements for the house, keeps a ledger of what goes where, and the ledger is a more honest account of your marriage than anything a lawyer holds. He knows which pieces you own outright, which are on loan, which were bought on terms and are not, strictly speaking, paid for. Mr. Feldman lowers each piece back onto its velvet with the tenderness of a man returning children to their beds, and he never ever comments, because his entire profession is discretion, and discretion is the most valuable thing in the case. The terror, quietly, is loss. A clasp that fails on a marble floor, a stone that works loose during a too enthusiastic embrace at the receiving line. You have trained yourself to touch the necklace every few minutes, a small reflexive check, fingertips to the throat, the gesture of a woman adjusting her jewels. It looks like vanity, it is inventory, and there is the deeper reckoning, the one about ownership, which you keep in a drawer in your mind and open only when the champagne makes you honest. Half of what glitters on you tonight is not yours. It belongs to the jeweller, or the bank, or to a version of the future in which your husband's fortune holds and the terms get met. You are, in a sense, a display case that walks and smiles, modelling wealth that lives elsewhere, and the glory is genuine and the ownership is a rumour. Still, when you catch yourself in the hall mirror before you leave, you are undeniably splendid, throat ablaze, wrists heavy with light, a woman assembled from the finest borrowed materials in the city. The effect does not care whether the diamonds are yours. The room will not ask. The photographer will not ask. The diamonds do not know they are on loan, and for a few hours neither, quite, do you. Then at dawn it reverses. Mr. Feldman's messenger returns, the case reappears, and you lift the cold river from your throat and lay it back on its velvet, where it will sleep in a vault while you sleep in a bed, both of you resting from a night of pretending to belong to each other. You log out of the diamonds the way you logged into them. And your throat, bare now, feels strangely light and strangely honest, and just a little cold where the ice used to be. You arrive and the society photographer finds you before the coat is off. Because being photographed is not an accident here, it is the product. Everything you have done since before dawn was aimed at this frame. But the camera has a memory, and so does everyone who reads the pages it feeds, which means the dress can never reappear. The pose must look unstudied, and the smile must survive the flash. You are building a public image, one photograph at a time, and every photograph quietly retires part of your wardrobe forever. The photographer is a small, determined man named Marty, who works the benefit circuit the way a fisherman works, a reliable stretch of river, and he knows exactly which faces the magazines will pay for. He materializes at your elbow with a murmured hello and a lifted camera, and the whole transaction takes 4 seconds, and those 4 seconds are the reason the evening exists. Everything else is scaffolding around the picture. You have a photograph face, and you can find it instantly, the way a soldier finds a salute, chin slightly down, because a lifted chin ages you, weight on the back foot, because it lengthens the line. Lips parted just enough to suggest you were caught mid-delight rather than posing, which is the whole art, looking accidental on purpose. You have practiced this in mirrors until it deploys without thought, a small automatic performance that switches on the instant a lens appears. The smile is the hard part, because it has to survive the flash without curdling. A real smile lasts a second and then collapses into effort, and Marty's flash always seems to fire during the collapse, catching the moment the joy became labour. So you have learned to hold it, gently, from behind the eyes, a smile with a load-bearing structure, engineered to stand up under a flashbulb, the way a bridge stands up under a truck. Then there is the rule, the iron rule, the rule beneath all the other rules. Never the same dress twice. The camera remembers, the magazines archive, and a woman photographed in October in the gown she wore in September has announced to the entire readership that she has run out, run down, run short. It is read as a confession of decline. So the gowns die after one exposure, sacrificed to the camera's memory, and the closet becomes a mausoleum, and the tailor's account keeps climbing, all to feed a machine that eats a $20,000 dress in a single frame. Mrs. Astor sweeps past as Marty is working, and Marty pivots instantly because she outranks you, and you feel the small honest sting of being deprioritized in real time. It is nothing personal. It is the market. She is a bigger picture, a surer sale, a face the magazines want more than yours, and the market corrects for that in the length of a heartbeat. You wait, serene, and when he swings back to you, you produce the face again, undamaged, as though you had not just been briefly set down like a bag. What nobody photographs is the fatigue of being photographable, the constant low awareness that you are always, potentially, on camera, that a slouch or a scowl or a real expression could surface in print beside your name, so you never fully relax your face in public. You wear it the way you wear the girdle, a structure held all evening, released only at home, in the dark, when the last car has gone, and there is finally no lens left to perform for. Marty nods, satisfied, and drifts off toward the next reliable face. And your 4 seconds are over, and somewhere in a week they will surface on a glossy page, a woman in a doomed dress smiling an engineered smile, looking effortless, looking delighted, looking exactly like a person who woke up this way. You will buy the magazine, you will study the picture, and you will already be thinking about what to wear next time because this dress, the one you are standing in, has just, with a single flash, been retired. You are asked to chair the spring benefit, and you say yes, because saying no is not really available to you. The invitation is an honour and a sentence at the same time. What you have just agreed to is 6 months of unpaid full-time work, a committee to assemble, tables to sell, a caterer to fight, and a seating chart to build, all in exchange for a photograph and a line in a column. You have taken a job with no salary and no title, and the only thing worse than accepting it would have been being passed over. The ask comes over lunch, delivered by Mrs. Harrington from the museum's development office, a woman who has the warm, relentless manner of someone who raises money for a living, which she does. She frames it as a great honour, and it is, and she frames it as a small favour, and it is not. She lets the honour do the work, and she watches your face for the exact moment you realise you can't decline, and when that moment arrives, she smiles and orders the tea because the deal is already closed. You can't say no, and the reasons are a small, tidy prison. To decline is to signal that you are too diminished, too broke, too out of favor to carry it, and the decline would travel faster than any acceptance. The chairmanship is a public statement that you are still someone, still central, still able to summon a ballroom's worth of the right people. Refusing it does not save you the labor. It costs you the standing. The honor is real, flattering, and completely inescapable. So you accept, gracefully, as though the thought of refusing had never crossed a mind so honored. And then the honor curdles quietly into a job the way it always does, somewhere between the tea and the front door. Because now there is a real event to produce, an actual gala for 1,000 people, with a budget and a deadline, and a board that expects a number by the end of it. You will spend the next 6 months as an unpaid event executive, running a production the size of a small wedding every week, and no one will call it work, because work is what other people do for money, and this is what you do for love of the institution, allegedly. The cruelty of it is the invisibility of the labor. When the night comes off flawlessly, everyone will say how effortless it looked, how naturally these things come together, as though a 1,000-person gala assembles itself from goodwill and orchids. The effort, if it shows, is a failure. So you will work like a fiend for half a year and then, on the night, stand at the door looking as though you wandered in from a nap, like a magician palming the exhaustion. Almost no one sees the job in it. You are congratulated for your leisure and thanked for your generosity, when what you are giving is your time, your nerve, and a large piece of your year. Still, you feel it, under the dread, the small illicit thrill of the thing. You are good at this. You can do what most people can't, which is bend a fractious, competitive, self-important crowd into a single successful evening by sheer organizational will. It is a real talent, with no name and no salary, and you are going to use every ounce of it. So, you finish the tea, and you thank Mrs. Harrington for the honor, and you walk out onto the avenue already making lists in your head, already assembling the committee, already at work on a job you are not permitted to refuse and will not be paid to do. The season has begun. You are the chair. You find a clean page, uncap your pen, and start the first of 100 lists. You start assembling your committee, and you discover very quickly that a charity committee is a hierarchy pretending to be a group of friends. Who you ask, and in what order, tells every woman on your list exactly what you think she is worth. Ask too low and you insult her. Ask too high and you owe her. Each yes comes with a debt, each no comes with a grudge, and the whole apparatus has to be balanced like a ledger before a single ticket is sold. You are recruiting an army, and every soldier is also keeping score. The committee has ranks, as clearly defined as anything in your husband's bank, and everyone knows them by heart, though no one has ever printed them. There is the honorary chair, a grand old name who does nothing and lends everything. There are the vice chairs, the working nobility, capable, ambitious, and genuinely useful. And there is the general committee below them, the eager foot soldiers who pay to be listed and are grateful for the line. You are placing women into this structure like a woman arranging a very sensitive seating chart, which, you realize, is what your whole life is. The order of asking is everything, because women talk, and a woman who learns she was asked second will feel it like a draft. So you make the calls in a precise sequence, the grandest first, descending with great care, each invitation calibrated to the exact altitude of its recipient. It requires the delicacy of a diplomat and the memory of a spy. Mrs. Whitfield accepts the honorary chair with a graciousness that costs her nothing and gives you a great deal, because her name at the top of the letterhead is worth 200 paying guests. She will attend for 20 minutes, wave from a good table, and leave, and this is exactly the correct and expected use of a woman of her stature. She is a figurehead, in the naval sense, who does not row, and was never meant to. You are grateful for her the way a ship is grateful for its flag. Then there is the delicate problem of the woman who wants more than her rank allows. Mrs. Cole believes she should be a vice chair, and she should not, and telling her so without saying so is a full afternoon's work. You praise her energy, you cite the demands of the role, you offer her something adjacent and flattering and lesser, and you do it all so gently that she thanks you for the demotion. It is a small masterpiece of management, performed for no audience, credited to no one, and you are quietly proud of it in a way you can never mention. The debts accumulate as you build, invisible but binding. Every woman who says yes has done you a favor, and favors in this world are never free, they are loans at social interest. You are not assembling a committee so much as taking out a series of small mortgages against your future, payable in evenings, redeemable in obligation. And underneath the calculation there is, occasionally, something almost like friendship, which is the strangest part. Some of these women you genuinely like. You have known them for 20 years, watched their children grow, held their confidences, and you are now ranking them like produce and managing their egos like a foreman. The affection is real, and so is the calculation, and they run side by side, and you have long since stopped being able to tell exactly where one ends and the other begins. By the end of the week, the committee is built, the ranks are filled, the letterhead is a small monument to careful diplomacy, and not one paying guest has yet been secured. You have done the hardest political work of the whole benefit, the invisible foundation on which the visible triumph will stand, and no one outside this handful of women will ever know it happened. You put down the phone, you look at the list, and you reach with a small sigh for the next one, because now you have to sell the tables. You pick up the phone to sell tables, which means calling women you had lunch with yesterday and asking them for $20,000. This is the part no one photographs. You are, in plain terms, a fundraiser working a list of your own social circle, and the friendship and the transaction are impossible to separate. A woman who buys a table expects you to buy hers next season. A woman who declines has told you something you will remember. Every call is warm and pleasant and also a negotiation, and both of you know it. The call has a shape, and you have made it so many times you could do it in your sleep. You open with warmth, genuine warmth, because these are your friends, and then you drift, with the smoothness of a car merging onto a highway, toward the reason you rang. There is a benefit. It is for a wonderful cause. You would so love to see her there. And a table is only $20,000, a phrase you deliver as though $20,000 were a charming little sum, a rounding error, a tip. The genius and the cruelty of the whole system is that no one can say no, or rather, no one can say no cleanly. To decline a friend's benefit is to declare something about your finances, your affection, your standing, and the declaration echoes. So the answer is almost always yes, which means you are not really asking, you are collecting, and the warmth is not exactly false, but it is definitely doing a job. You are a very charming toll booth, and everyone who drives through knows the fare. Mrs. Ellsworth says yes before you have finished the sentence, buys 2 tables, and asks after your children, and you love her for it, truly, because she has made the transaction feel like a gift freely given rather than a bill quietly paid. This is the highest form of the art, to be dunned and to feel flattered, and she has it. You make a note by her name, a small mental gold star, because the wheel will turn and she will call you next spring. Then there is Mrs. Pratt, who hedges, who says she must check her calendar, which is the polite lie everyone uses when the honest answer is no or not for you. You hear it for what it is instantly, a soft decline dressed as a delay, and you keep your voice bright and let her off the hook, because pressing would be vulgar, but you file it. You file it carefully. A woman who checks her calendar for you is a woman telling you your stock has slipped, and the market always tells the truth eventually. The strangest part is how the money itself becomes abstract. $20,000 is a table, but it is also a vote, and the women pay it partly for the cause and partly to be seen beside the right names. You are selling belonging at $20,000 a seat, and the astonishing thing is that it is, by any measure, a bargain. By the end of the afternoon, your ear is warm and your voice is hoarse, and the tables are mostly sold, and you sit for a moment in the quiet with the list in front of you, marked up in your private shorthand. Yeses and maybes and the small cool spaces where a no used to be a friend. You have raised a great deal of money for a genuinely good cause, and you have also just taken the temperature of your entire social world, one call at a time, and learned things you would rather not know. You put the phone down. Your husband raised money today too, on a trading floor, with a title and a bonus and a name on a door. You did the same work, on the same phone, for a hospital, for free, and no one will ever call it a job. Then you go to change for dinner, hoarse, victorious, and quietly aware of exactly where you stand. You sit down with the floor plan and the place cards, and you begin the single most dangerous task of the entire benefit, which is deciding who sits where. Every placement is a verdict delivered in public. The donor at the wrong table withholds next year's check. The rival seated below her enemy will remember it for a decade. You move the cards around a diagram of a ballroom the way a general moves troops, because a badly seated room can undo 6 months of work in one evening, and everyone will know it was your hand that did it. The cards are small and white and harmless looking, and they are the most powerful objects in your apartment. Each one is a name, and each name has a rank, a grievance, a history, and a current market value, all of which you carry in your head like a broker carries prices. You lay them out on the dining table and stand over them, and the standing goes on for hours, because there is no formula for this, only judgment, and the judgment is yours, and the blame will be too. Table 1 is the throne room, the tables nearest it are the court, and the distance from table 1 to a given guest is a public measurement of her importance. This is the whole terror of it. A woman seated at table 12 does not need to be told she has fallen. She can count. The math is simple, brutal, and perfectly public. There are exactly 3 acceptable tables for a woman of your standing, and everyone can count them. The ballroom is a ranking made visible, and you are the one assigning the ranks, which makes you, for one evening, the least popular and most feared woman in New York. Then there are the feuds, and there are always feuds. Mrs. Vandergriff and Mrs. Ross have not spoken since a disagreement over a house in the Hamptons, and seating them within sightline of each other would detonate the whole table. So you separate them, carefully, across the room, the way you would store 2 volatile chemicals on opposite shelves. You keep a running map of who has wronged whom, a vast unwritten atlas of resentment, and you consult it constantly, because a single misplaced card can turn a triumph into a story that follows you for years. The couples present their own puzzle. You can't seat a husband beside his own wife, that is social death by tedium, and you can't seat him beside a woman he is rumoured to admire, that is social death of a livelier kind. So you thread them through the room like a woman diffusing a series of small polite bombs, some of them ticking. You know who is drinking, who is straying, who is about to be traded in, and you seat around all of it with a discretion no one will ever thank you for. When it is done, when every card has found its exact and defensible place, you step back and look at the diagram, and it is beautiful, in the way a solved equation is beautiful, a room full of landmines rendered safe by pure attention. On the night the guests will drift to their tables and assume the arrangement fell from heaven, and only you will know how close each of them came to sitting somewhere that would have ruined the evening and possibly a friendship. You gather the cards and set them in order, and your neck aches and your eyes are tired, and the whole thing looks, on paper, like a party. It is not a party. It is a treaty, negotiated card by card across an entire winter's worth of grudges, and you signed every clause alone at your own dining table, and tomorrow, if you have done it right, no one will notice it at all. You meet with the florist, the caterer, and the party designer, and you hold 3 conversations that are really about controlling other people's talent. The designer can turn a museum hall into a fantasy overnight, and securing him is a victory over every hostess who wanted him first. The florist can make or break the look that will be photographed and judged. You are the client, but you are also auditioning them and being auditioned by them, and the bill for all of it arrives, whether or not the evening goes the way you have promised the board it will. The party designer is the prize, and everyone in your world knows his name, because he can take an ordinary institutional ballroom and turn it, overnight, into a Venetian garden or a snow forest or the inside of a jewel. He is expensive in a way that makes even you blink, and he chooses his clients as much as they choose him, which means the meeting is partly a job interview in which you, the woman paying, are the applicant. You arrive prepared, you flatter precisely. You want him, and wanting him is a small humiliation you swallow with a smile. Robert, the designer, listens to your vision with the patient expression of a genius being told his business by an amateur, and then gently replaces your idea with a better one that he will let you believe was yours. This is the transaction. You are paying a fortune for his taste, and also for the fiction that it is your taste, and he provides both with the smoothness of a man who knows exactly how much steering they can feel before they buck. You feel none of it. That is how good he is. The whole exchange is polished, practiced, and quietly humiliating. The florist is a different negotiation, warmer and more treacherous, because flowers are where the photographs live. The centerpieces will be in every picture, judged by every reader, compared to every other benefit of the season. So you argue, sweetly, about height, because a tall arrangement blocks the sight lines that let people admire each other, and admiring each other is the actual purpose of the evening. You argue about colour, about season, about whether the peonies will hold until 11 or wilt into evidence of failure by 9. It is a real conversation about flowers conducted as a proxy war about your reputation. The caterer you fight with over numbers, because 1,000 people must be fed food that photographs well, tastes acceptable, and can be produced at a price that leaves money for the actual charity, which is, after all, allegedly the point. The food barely matters, since half the room will not eat it, but it must look correct, and a plate that looks correct and costs less is the caterer's art and your victory. You negotiate the way your husband negotiates a deal, and you are, if anything, better at it, because you can't fall back on being the man in the room. What none of them will do is absorb the risk, and the risk is entirely yours. If the designer's vision falls flat, if the flowers wilt, if the food is cold, the board does not call Robert, the board calls you. You are the client and the guarantor both, and the moment something goes wrong it becomes, mysteriously, your fault alone. You have signed for the magic and also for the blame. You are a producer with all of the responsibility and a fraction of the authority, and you do it beautifully, and you do it again next season. You leave the last meeting with a folder full of contracts and estimates and swatches, and a headache, and the private knowledge that the whole gorgeous evening now rests on a florist's peonies, and a caterer's timing and a designer's mood. You have hired the magic. Now you can only hope it shows up, and you walk home doing sums in your head, a woman who has spent the afternoon commanding artists and will spend the night worrying about flowers. You confirm your escort for the evening, and your escort is not your husband, because your husband does not go. He is called a walker, usually a charming single man who takes married women to the events their husbands refuse to attend, and he is one of the few people in your life who owes you nothing and wants nothing back. He will advise you on your lipstick and your enemies with equal honesty. You are walking into a couple's world on the arm of a man everyone knows is not your husband, and everyone has agreed to pretend this is normal. The institution has a name, coined by the same fashion paper that names everything in your world, and the name is Walker. The husbands will not come. They find the ballet excruciating, the operas long, the benefits an ordeal of small talk with people who can't help their careers. So they write the checks and stay at the office, and someone has to fill the empty chair, and into that chair steps a particular kind of man, single, cultured, funny, and entirely safe. Yours is named Freddie, and Freddie is the best company in New York. He arrives precisely on time, in a dinner jacket that fits like a confidence, and he looks you over once, head to hem, with the frank assessing eye of a man who has dressed more women than a department store. Then he adjusts one earring by a quarter turn, pronounces you perfect, and offers his arm. In the space of 30 seconds he has done what your husband has not done in a decade, which is look at you and tell you the truth about how you look. The genius of the walker is that he wants nothing you can't give freely. He wants the evenings, the access, the front row seat at the greatest show in the city, and in exchange he gives you flawless company, ruthless honest advice, and a running commentary on the room so wickedly precise you have to bite your cheek. He is a friend with no agenda, which in your life is nearly a miracle. He is also the person you tell things which surprises you. You can't confide in the other wives, who are competitors, or in your husband, who is a rumour, or in the staff, who report to you. But Freddie has no table to fill and no rival to feed, and so, in the back of the car between the apartment and the museum, you find yourself saying true things out loud, and he receives them, and files them, and never once uses them against you. He is the safest ear in Manhattan, and he got there by being outside the whole machine. The photographers shoot you together, and the caption names you and your cause, and never asks the obvious question. The other wives arrive with their own Freddies, a whole quiet fleet of excellent men, escorting a whole quiet fleet of married women, while the husbands, somewhere downtown, move numbers around a screen. It is one of the odder facts of your world, an entire social ecosystem built around the chairs the men refuse to sit in. And yet, in the car, in a quiet moment, the arrangement tells its own small, sad truth, which is that the most reliable, attentive, honest man in your life is one you are not married to and were never going to be. Freddie knows your dress size and your enemies and the exact state of your marriage, and he is paid in opera tickets and good dinners, and he is, by a wide margin, the best relationship you have. You do not examine this too closely, He would not let you. He would make a joke instead, and you would laugh. He hands you out of the car, and you rise into the flashbulbs on his steady arm, and for the length of the night you are a couple, an entirely fictional couple, and it works better than the real thing ever did. Good luck finding the flaw in it. Everyone else stopped looking years ago. You take your place at the head of the receiving line, and now the 6 months become one long evening of unbroken performance. You greet 300 people by name, you seat them without incident, you eat nothing, and you remain visibly delighted for as many hours as it takes. Your feet stopped forgiving you an hour ago. Your smile is a muscle you have trained like an athlete. Somewhere behind the delight you are tracking who arrived, who was slighted, and who noticed, because the evening is the exam and you are being graded in real time. The receiving line is the first ordeal, and it is a feat of memory disguised as warmth. 300 faces arrive in sequence, each expecting to be known, and you know them, all of them, by name and by rank, and by the thing you must not mention. You greet the widow without asking after the husband. You greet the newly divorced without a flicker. You do it 300 times, and the strain of it lives entirely behind your eyes when no one can see it. Your feet are the first thing to betray you. The shoes are beautiful, elegant, and hostile, and by the second hour they have declared open war on your arches, and you cannot shift your weight, cannot lean, cannot for one moment stop standing gracefully on two small platforms of pain. You have trained for this. You breathe through it. You keep the smile lit. The smile itself is the real athletic event. A genuine smile lasts a moment. Yours must last 4 hours, which no genuine emotion can sustain. So you run it on technique, powered from somewhere below feeling, a smile with an engine rather than a spark. It never quite touches the eyes, and it holds, hour after hour, long past the point where anything inside you is delighted. It is the most sophisticated muscle you own, built one benefit at a time. And all the while, behind the performance, the other machine is running, the one that watches. You clock every arrival and every absence. You note that Mrs. Delacroix came late, which means something, and that the Hallorans did not come at all, which means more. You see the small collision at table 9 and move, gliding, to smooth it before it becomes a story. You are hostess and air traffic controller at once, and the two run in parallel without ever touching, because if they touched, the smile would drop. Dinner comes and you do not eat it, of course, because a chair who eats is a chair not working the room. You rise between courses, you table hop, you deliver the small warm word that makes a donor feel seen, you laugh at the joke you have heard 4 times tonight as though it were minted fresh for you. The food sits and cools and departs untouched, and your hunger is just one more thing you are managing, filed beside your feet and your face under the general heading of pain to be ignored until later. Then, near the end, a moment you did not plan for, a quiet older woman takes your hand among the receiving line's last stragglers and says, simply, that it is a beautiful evening and that you have done a lovely thing. And something in you, exhausted and starved and standing on ruined feet, nearly gives way, because it is the first true sentence anyone has said to you all night, and you have to look at the flowers to keep your engineered smile from becoming a real and dangerous one. You always recover. The evening winds down, the table's empty, the last guests drift toward their cars, and the 6 months and the 4 hours are finally, mercifully over. You stand for a moment in the emptying ballroom, feet howling, face aching, stomach hollow, and you look at the wreckage of a triumph. It went perfectly. Everyone said so, and no one, not one of the 300, will ever know what it cost to make perfect look effortless. You slip off one shoe under the tablecloth. You have earned that much. You manage a household staff large enough to need a manager, and the manager is you. There is a butler, a cook, maids, a laundress, a chauffeur, a secretary, and, for the children, a nanny or two, and every one of them reports to you. You hire them, you fire them, you settle the quiet wars that break out below stairs, and you absorb the blame when a dinner for 16 goes wrong. It is, in scale and stress, a small hospitality business, and you are its unpaid chief executive, and the staff is not company. The morning begins with the butler, a dignified man named Wilson who has served in better houses and never quite lets you forget it. He presents the day the way a chief of staff presents a briefing: deliveries expected, repairs pending, the wine that must be decanted, the silver that must be counted. He does this with a faint air of managing you as much as serving you, and he is not entirely wrong, because a good butler knows the house better than its owners. Below Wilson sits a whole small society with its own politics, and the politics land on your desk. The cook and the housekeeper are locked in a slow, cold, and entrenched war over territory that has been running for years. A maid believes another maid is favoured. The laundress feels the chauffeur looks down on her. You referee all of it, delicately, endlessly, because a staff at war is a staff that leaks, and a leaking staff sends your private life straight into the columns you spend your days trying to manage. Hiring is its own art, because you are not merely filling a role, you are admitting a stranger into the most intimate machinery of your life. A new maid will see your unmade face, your husband's absences, the state of the accounts, the pills in the cabinet. So you hire for discretion first and competence second, and you check references the way a bank checks a borrower, because the person dusting your bedroom knows things a blackmailer would pay for, and you are trusting her not to have that thought. Firing is worse, and you do it more than you would like. A cook who drinks, a nanny who is too fond of the children in the wrong way, a footman caught pocketing the small silver. Each removal is a delicate surgery, done quietly, with references honest enough to be fair and vague enough to move the problem along, because the world of household staff is small and talks, and a servant dismissed cruelly can dine out on your secrets for a decade. You have learned to end things gently, which is its own exhausting skill. And then there is the strange intimacy of it, the thing no organization chart captures. These people are in your home every day, closer to your actual life than your friends, your husband, or your children. Mrs. Doyle the cook has fed you through a miscarriage and a scandal and 100 lonely dinners, and she knows you in a way almost no one does, and yet she is staff, and the line between you is bright and permanent and understood by both of you. You are surrounded all day by people who know you intimately and belong to a different country. It adds up to a full-time executive job that shares your address, running under the other full-time job of being seen, and none of it appears on any ledger as work, because it happens inside a home, and work that happens inside a home has never been counted as work. By evening the machine is running smoothly again. Wilson has counted the silver, the Cold War has been refereed for another day, the dinner has gone out flawlessly to the right 16 people. You stand in the quiet after, in a house full of people who work for you, and you are, as ever, the manager and the resident and the loneliest person on the premises, presiding over a staff of intimates who will go home to lives of their own and leave you to yours. You plan a dinner party, which sounds like hospitality and is actually casting. The guest list of 16 has to be balanced like a chemistry experiment, the right mix of money, wit, title, and usefulness, with no two enemies within earshot. The menu, the wine, the flowers, and the conversation are all your responsibility, and a dull evening is a mark against your name that circulates by morning. You are producing a piece of theatre for an audience that is also the cast, and every one of them will privately review it before the coffee is poured. The guest list is the whole game, and you build it the way a chemist builds a reaction, with an eye on what will spark and what will explode. You need one guest who is genuinely famous to give the evening a centre of gravity. You need one who is genuinely funny to keep it from curdling. You need money, obviously, but not only money, because a table of nothing but money is a table that talks about real estate for 3 hours and leaves early. The mix is everything, and getting it right is a talent disguised as a hobby. The seating, even here, at 16, is a small, delicate, and dangerous war. Him next to her because they will delight each other, but not next to his own wife, and not across from the woman he used to delight before things cooled. You place the funny one strategically, like a load-bearing beam, where his energy can hold up the weaker end of the table. You put yourself where you can see everything, and reach the kitchen with a glance. It is a diagram, and you will be the only one who ever knew it existed. The food matters more here than at a benefit, because 16 people at your own table will actually taste it, and the cook and you have negotiated a menu that flatters without frightening. Nothing too experimental, because these are not adventurous eaters. They are people who want to be reassured that everything, including dinner, is exactly as it should be. Nothing too heavy, because a heavy course kills conversation, and conversation is the point. You are engineering a meal that gets out of the way of the talk. Then the night itself, and here the real work is invisible and constant. You are watching the whole table at once, a woman monitoring a dozen small weather systems, ready to redirect a conversation that is drifting toward politics, to rescue a guest who has been stranded in silence, to laugh at exactly the right moment to relaunch a stalling exchange. You keep the whole thing aloft by pure attention, like a juggler who must never appear to be juggling, and the moment it looks like effort, it has failed. Mr. Ashford, the famous one, tells his story, the story you invited him for, and you laugh at it as though you have not heard it at 3 other tables this season, because that laugh is part of the service. He glows, the table glows, and you feel the small private satisfaction of a machine you built running exactly as designed. 16 people convinced they are having a spontaneous, delightful, effortless evening that you spent a week engineering down to the placement of the salt. The conversation is the dish you actually cooked, and when it is good, when it sparkles and builds and loops the table in, there is a real joy in it. You are good at this. It is one of the few arenas where your talent is fully deployed and fully visible, even if they call it charm or luck or simply a lovely evening. Then it ends, the guests gather their coats, they thank you warmly, and they step into the night already composing the verdict they will deliver by phone tomorrow. It went beautifully. You know it did. You stand in the wreckage of a successful table, candles guttering, and feel the specific tiredness of a performance that looked like leisure. You produced a small, flawless world for 3 hours, and tomorrow you will start thinking about the next 16. You begin planning your next party already knowing the number you have to beat, because the woman across the park set a bar last month and the whole circle is waiting to see if you can clear it. This is competitive hostessing, and it is genuinely a competition, tracked and scored by everyone who matters. Her flowers, her guest list, her surprise for the guests, all of it is now the floor you must exceed. You are not entertaining. You are escalating, in an arms race where the weapons are centerpieces and the casualties are reputations. The woman across the park is Gayfrid, or someone very like her, and last month she gave a party that people are still describing, which is the whole problem, because a party people describe is a party that raised the price of admission for everyone. She had a tent built to look like a 17th century tavern. She had living models pose, motionless, as famous paintings, holding still for hours so that dinner guests could stroll past art that breathed. It was absurd, magnificent, and ruinous, and now it is the baseline. You did not start this contest, but you can't leave it, because to give a merely lovely party now, after the breathing paintings, is to concede. Restraint reads as defeat. A tasteful evening reads as an empty account or a failure of nerve, and both are fatal. So you sit with your designer, and you try to imagine something that has not been done, which is difficult, because the whole circle has spent a decade doing everything, and originality is running low while the budgets keep climbing. The escalation has a logic, and the logic is madness, and everyone can see it, and no one can stop. Each party must top the last, which means each party costs more, stages more, risks more, until a birthday dinner has the budget of a small film and the anxiety of a stock offering. A man you know spent a reported fortune flying his guests somewhere improbable for a single evening. The numbers have detached from any earthly sense of what an evening is worth, and floated up into a realm where the point is no longer pleasure but proof. Your party designer warns you gently that the theme you have chosen was done, faintly, 2 seasons ago, and you feel the cold drop of a woman who nearly repeated a joke. Novelty is the entire currency now, and novelty is exhausting. You send him away to think harder. He will. He is paid to conjure the unrepeatable, again, on schedule. And underneath the spectacle is the thing no one says at the planning meetings, which is that the parties are aimed at the other hostesses, not the guests in the room, and the message is always the same. I am ascendant. I have the money, the taste, the designer, the nerve. Look at what I can command. The guests are extras in a film about your own standing, and they know it, and they come anyway, because being an extra in the right film beats starring in no film at all. You settle, finally, on your escalation. Something with genuine astonishment built into it. A moment that will make 300 jaded people briefly forget they are keeping score. It will cost more than you will admit. It will be talked about, which is the entire objective, and the talk will raise the bar again, for you next time and for everyone, and the wheel will turn, and someone across some other park will lie awake trying to top you. The strangest part is that you are, in a distant way, enjoying it. There is a real thrill in the game, in the sheer audacity of it. You are competitive, and this is a competition, and you are good at it, and the fact that the prize is only more of the same contest does not, in the moment, dim the pleasure of winning a round. You pick up the phone to book the impossible. The season, once again, is on. You watch your guests arrive and you feel every one of them begin, quietly, to inspect. Before they have their coats off, they have priced the flowers, assessed the table, clocked who else is here, and formed an opinion they will share tomorrow. You have been inspected this way your whole adult life, so you inspect back, because that is the language. Nothing in the room is neutral. The centerpiece is evidence, the wine is evidence, the guest list is evidence, and you are the one who will be found guilty or acquitted by breakfast. The inspection begins at the door, and it is astonishingly fast. A woman enters, and in the 2 seconds before she smiles, she has already read the hall, the flowers, the art on the wall, the caliber of the coats being taken, and priced the whole tableau to the dollar. It is not rudeness. It is fluency, instant, ruthless, and entirely automatic. She has been trained since girlhood to read a room like a jeweler reads a stone, for flaws, for value, for the small tells that separate the real from the aspirational. Mrs. Larchmont runs a fingertip, almost invisibly, along the edge of a console table as she passes, checking for dust that will not be there, and the gesture is so practiced it looks like nothing. But you saw it. You always see it. It is an inspection disguised as a passing touch, a woman auditing your housekeeping in the guise of admiring your furniture, and you file it, because you would have done the same, and probably have. The flowers are the first exhibit entered into evidence. Too modest and you look like you are economizing, which suggests trouble. Too enormous and you look like you are trying, which is worse, because trying is the confession that must never be made. The arrangement has to sit in the exact narrow band between careless and desperate, and every woman in the room can locate it on that spectrum within a heartbeat of walking in. You spent an hour with the florist finding that band. It shows, which means it worked, and you inspect them right back, because the language runs both ways, and fluency is survival. You clock the dress that has been seen before, the jewels that are new and therefore significant, the couple standing a foot too far apart. You read the tables the way they read yours. It is more like a shared second sight, an entire class of people who can't enter a room without appraising it. The exhausting truth underneath is that the inspection never stops. Not really. Not even in your own home. Not even alone. You have internalized every appraising eye you have ever met, and they live in you now, a permanent silent jury, so that even when the guests are gone, you are still assessing your own rooms as a stranger would, still finding the dropped stitch, still bracing for a verdict. You have become your own harshest inspector, and she never takes the night off. Mr. Vane, an old friend and one of the few honest men you know, catches your eye across the room and gives you a small private look that says he sees all of it, the inspecting and the being inspected, the whole tireless machinery of judgment, and finds it faintly funny. It is a relief, that look. For a second, someone has stepped outside the appraisal, and you almost laugh, and then a guest arrives and the machinery starts again. By the end of the night, you have been read 100 times and have read 100 rooms in return, and you are tired in a way that has nothing to do with your feet. You close the door on the last guest and stand in the sudden quiet, and the jury inside you delivers its verdict on the evening, harsher than any guest would dare. It went well, it says, grudgingly. Then it starts inspecting the flowers for tomorrow. You turn off the lights. The inspection follows you into the dark. You wake and reach for the newspaper before you are fully conscious, because last night's party is about to be graded in print by a woman named Susie whose single paragraph can lift you or bury you. The column is short and the stakes are not. A warm mention means the season goes your way. A cool line, or worse, no line at all, means all that work evaporated. You are lying in a bed that cost more than a house, holding a cheap sheet of newsprint and letting a gossip columnist decide how the next month of your life will feel. Susie is not her real name, of course, but the byline is more powerful than any name attached to it. She goes everywhere, sees everything, and renders verdicts in a breezy, girlish prose that disguises the fact that she holds more social power than most of the men whose fortunes fill her columns. A hostess she likes ascends. A hostess she finds tiresome simply stops appearing, edited out of the record as though she never gave the party at all. You have watched it happen to women who deserved better, and you have learned to be very, very charming to Susie. The fingers do the reading before the eyes are ready, riffling to the column, scanning for your own name the way a gambler scans a result. There it is, or there it is not, and in that half second the whole night is settled retroactively. If your name is there, warm, spelled correctly, beside a flattering adjective, the 6 months, and the ruined feet, and the starved afternoons all quietly redeem themselves. If it is not, they do not. The labor was identical either way. Only the sentence changed. The verdict is brief, public, and completely final. Today, you are lucky. Susie calls the evening a triumph, names your flowers, quotes something clever a guest said at your table, and the relief floods through you with a force that is frankly disproportionate to a line of newsprint. You read it 3 times. You will read it again at lunch. You may, though you would never admit this, cut it out and keep it. A small paper trophy for a competition no one will officially acknowledge you entered. Mrs. Cabot telephones within the hour, ostensibly to congratulate you, actually to confirm that you saw it, and to let you know that she saw it too, and the call is a small masterpiece of feline warmth. Under the congratulations runs the current everyone can hear, that a woman praised by Susie is a woman risen, and risen women must be watched. You thank her sweetly. You both understand exactly what the call is. You would have made the same one. The darker mornings you do not talk about. The mornings when the column skips you, or worse, delivers the small poisoned compliment, the faint praise engineered to wound, that everyone in the circle will pass over their own coffee and understand precisely. On those mornings the paper feels heavier, and the day tilts, and you spend it reviewing your recent conduct for the invisible error, and you find nothing, because the truth is that Susie's weather changes for reasons no one controls, least of all you. You fold the paper, this lucky morning, and set it aside, and let the good verdict settle into your body like warmth after cold. It should not matter this much. You know it should not. You are an intelligent woman with a household and a fortune and a mind, and you have just let your entire mood be set by a paragraph written by a stranger about a party. But that is the arrangement, and you did not write it, and this morning at least, it went your way. You will take the win. Tomorrow the column resets, and so, quietly, do you. You eat dinner alone, again, at a table set for the 2 of you, because the man whose money holds all of this together is at the office where he lives most of his real life. The 18-hour day is not a crisis. It is the arrangement. He leaves before you wake and returns after you sleep, and the marriage happens in the gaps, mostly by staff relay. You built an entire public identity around a partnership, and the partner is a rumor you married. The apartment is full of people who work for you and empty of the one who does not. The table is set for 2, which is either a hope or a joke. You can no longer tell which. The cook prepares a dinner for 2 because that is the standing order, and it arrives correct and beautiful, and you eat your third of it at one end of a long table while the other place setting gleams, unused, a small formal shrine to a man who is not coming. You have stopped asking whether he will. Asking was a habit you retired around the time you retired the habit of waiting up. He is downtown, on a floor of a tower, doing the thing he actually loves, which is the deal. You understand it, even, in a way, admire it. The total consuming devotion he brings to the market, a devotion he has never once brought to a dinner table. The trades are his mistress and his religion and his best friend, and he is faithful to them with a constancy that would move you if any of it were pointed in your direction. It is not. It never was. His devotion is total, tireless, and pointed entirely elsewhere. You married a man who was already spoken for by a screen full of numbers. He has approximately 3 great loves, and not one of them is you. The communication, such as it is, runs through the staff. Wilson conveys that Mr. will dine at the office. A message comes that the car will be late. His secretary, a competent woman named Miss Pruitt, who speaks to your husband more hours a day than you do in a month, relays his schedule to your secretary, who relays it to you, a marriage conducted like 2 corporations coordinating through their front offices. You know his movements the way you know the weather report, third hand and subject to change. The loneliness is not dramatic, which is what makes it durable. There is no fight, no crisis, no other woman you can name and blame, at least not yet. There is only the slow accumulation of empty evenings, the quiet erosion of a marriage that was never quite present to erode, 1,000 dinners for 2 eaten by 1. You are not unhappy. Exactly. You are something more diffuse, a woman well provided for and thoroughly unaccompanied, rich in everything except the company of the person you chose. Sometimes he comes home late and you hear him, moving quietly through the dark apartment, and there is a brief, strange intimacy in the sounds of a man you barely see removing his shoes so as not to wake you. You lie still and listen, and you do not call out, and he does not check, and the two of you pass the night 10 feet apart in a silence that has become, over the years, its own kind of language, fluent and sad and entirely without words. So you finish your solitary dinner, and you thank the cook, who knows, who has always known, and you carry your book to a chair by the window that looks out over a park full of other lit windows, other apartments, other arrangements. You are, by every visible measure, a woman who has everything, and you sit alone with your everything in a beautiful room at an hour when other people are simply, ordinarily together, and you turn the page and you do not wait up, because you learned a long time ago that the waiting was the thing that hurt. You signed a piece of paper before the wedding, and you have signed several revisions of it since, and that paper quietly governs your entire future. The prenuptial agreement fixed in advance exactly what you will receive if he decides to replace you, and the number has been renegotiated as your standing rose. You do not like to think about it, so mostly you do not, until a bad week reminds you that your decades of unpaid labour have already been assigned a price by lawyers, and the price is written down, and you were in the room when it was set. You remember signing the first one, a young woman in love, being handed a document across a mahogany table by a lawyer who would not meet your eyes. It was framed as a formality, a bit of paperwork, nothing to do with feeling, and you signed it because refusing would have been ungracious and because you did not, at 26, believe the clauses would ever apply to you. Love does not read the fine print. The clauses are cold, precise, and infinitely patient, and they wait for love to finish talking. The document has been revised since, more than once, each revision a small negotiation conducted through attorneys while the two of you smiled at dinner as though nothing were happening. As his fortune grew, the number in the agreement was adjusted, upward, which sounds like generosity and is actually accounting. Your worth in the event of your disposal was recalculated the way a policy is recalculated, and you sat across from your own husband's lawyer and haggled, politely, over the price of your own future absence. Underneath its dense clauses, the paper says one brutal thing: your position is conditional. Everything, the apartment, the standing, the diamonds returned to the vault each dawn, rests on his continued decision to keep you. The prenuptial agreement is the fine print of the whole arrangement made explicit, the clause that admits out loud what the rest of your life politely pretends, that you are, in the eyes of the contract, replaceable, and the terms of your replacement have already been agreed. Mr. Harmon, your own lawyer, a decent man you see once a year, tried gently at the last revision to secure you better terms, and you watched him lose, courteously, to the greater weight of a richer man's attorneys, and you understood that even your defence was a formality. The number went where his side wanted it to go, with just enough movement to let everyone feel the negotiation had been real. You thanked Mr. Harmon. He looked, for a moment, genuinely sorry, which was the most honest thing anyone said all day. The cruelty is the timing of the knowledge. At 26, the clauses were abstract, a distant hypothetical, easy to sign away. At 45, they are the actual architecture of your life, and you understand them now in a way you could not have then when it might have mattered. You know exactly what you are worth on paper, to the dollar, in the event, and the number, whatever it is smaller than the years. Because years do not convert cleanly into dollars, and the lawyers only price the dollars. So you keep the knowledge in a locked drawer in your mind and open it as rarely as you can manage. Most days the paper sleeps, harmless, in a vault beside the diamonds, 2 documents recording what you are permitted to keep. But on the bad nights you feel it there. The number, waiting, a verdict already rendered on a marriage still in progress, and you understand that you have spent your whole adult life building something on a foundation you signed away before you knew what a foundation was. Then you close the drawer. There is nothing in it you can change. You notice, at a party, the way your husband's attention moves toward the young blonde across the room, and you feel the floor tilt very slightly. She is a decade or 2 younger. She is on the arm of some other titan for now, and she is what the columns call the second wife in waiting. You have read the article in Fortune that made it a category. You know a man your husband's age is now admired for trading up, not pitied for it, so you smile and you watch and you do the math you promised yourself you would stop doing. The magazine actually printed it, in earnest, a serious business publication running a serious analysis of the trophy wife, as though she were a market trend, which, in a sense, she is. The trophy wife is younger, often taller, decorative and accomplished at once, and her role is to certify her husband's success the way a new corporate jet certifies it. You read the article twice, the first time with a scholar's detachment and the second time with a cold recognition that you are reading a description of the weather you live in. What the article made brutally clear is that the culture has flipped. Once, a man who left his loyal older wife for a young one was a cad, faintly disgraced. Now he is a man keeping up appearances, and the disgrace has migrated to the first wife, the matronly one. The woman who let herself become the thing a successful man is no longer expected to be married to. You are, by the calendar, on the wrong side of this new arrangement, and no amount of couture or starvation entirely fixes a birth date. The verdict is quiet, public, and unforgiving. Her name is something like Ashley, the blonde across the room, and she is luminous in the specific way of a woman who has not yet had to work for any of it. She does not know the receiving line, the seating chart, the ruined feet, the paper trophies cut from the column. She knows only that older, powerful men find her fascinating, and she is right, and she wears that knowledge lightly, the way you once wore yours, before it calcified into a job. You do not hate her. That is the strange part. You recognize her. She is you, 16 years ago, before you knew the price. You watch your husband watch her, and it is not even lust, exactly. That would almost be easier. It is a kind of appraisal, an involuntary comparison, the same appraising eye he brings to an undervalued company, running its cold appraisal across a younger woman while his current holding stands beside him in last season's throat of borrowed diamonds. You have seen that look on him before. You saw it, once, aimed at you, across a different room, a lifetime ago. Mrs. Delano, beside you, follows your gaze and murmurs something dry and consoling, because she has been through it, replaced years ago, pensioned off with a settlement and a smaller apartment and a permanent seat 2 tables from the centre. She is kind about it now, from the far side, and her kindness is the most frightening thing in the room, because she is what waiting looks like, and she is telling you, gently, without saying it, that the younger woman usually wins in the end. So you finish your champagne and you keep your face serene, because a face that betrays the fear accelerates the very thing it fears, and you have not survived this long by flinching. You will go home tonight to a table set for 2 and a document in a vault, and you will get up before dawn tomorrow and fight the calendar at the vanity, because that is the only move the game allows. The blonde laughs somewhere behind you. You do not turn around. You have done the math. You already know the answer. You simply refuse, tonight, to say it out loud. You keep an appointment before the fall season that you describe to no one as what it is, which is a surgeon holding off the calendar with a knife. A freshening, a small correction, a little work done quietly in the weeks when no one expects to see you. It is maintenance, discussed among the women the way a dental cleaning is discussed, because the alternative is letting your face announce your age to a husband whose eye has already started to wander. There is no natural stopping point to this. You began at 40, and the appointments stretch out ahead of you for decades. The decade has made this ordinary, which is the strangest thing about it. Surgeons across the city are busier every year, the number of procedures climbing steeply, the whole enterprise of correcting the face moving from a shameful secret toward a routine line item. You are not an outlier. The whole ritual is discreet, routine, and quietly relentless. You are a customer in a booming market, one of thousands of women converting anxiety into appointments, and the surgeons have grown rich on the simple, reliable fact that the calendar never stops and neither, therefore, does the demand. Dr. Reiner has an office as hushed and expensive as the couture salon, and he greets you the way the fitter greets you, with a professional appraising eye that travels your face measuring what can be lifted, smoothed, erased. He speaks in the soft euphemisms of the trade, refreshing, opening the eyes, a little tightening along the jaw, language engineered to make a knife sound like a facial. You have learned the vocabulary. You use it yourself now, at lunch, discussing your maintenance in code with women fluent in the same soft dialect. The timing is a whole art of its own, because the work must be done and healed in secret, in the dead weeks between seasons, so that you can reappear looking merely rested rather than repaired. A woman must never be caught mid-recovery, bruised and swollen, evidence of the effort on open display. So you vanish, briefly, to the country or behind a convenient minor illness, and you return weeks later looking wonderful, and everyone says how well you look, and no one says why, and the code holds. The thing no one mentions is that it has no end. A dress can be retired, a party can be topped and forgotten, but the face keeps aging every single day, relentlessly, so the maintenance can never be completed, only repeated. You began at 40 with one small correction, and the corrections beget corrections, each one buying a year or two before the next, a subscription to your own youth build-in procedures. You are running now, at a dead sprint, simply to stay in place. And underneath the vanity, which everyone assumes is the whole story, sits the real engine, which is fear. You do all of it to hold the husband's wandering eye a little longer, to keep the younger woman's advantage from becoming decisive. The knife is a defensive weapon in a war against a rival who will always, by the simple fact of the calendar, be younger than you, which means it is a war you are structurally guaranteed to lose, eventually, no matter how good Dr. Reiner is. You make the next appointment before you leave, because you always make the next appointment, and you step back out onto the avenue with your secret intact and your face, for now, holding the line. It will not hold forever. You know this. Dr. Reiner knows this. But forever is not the deal you are buying. You are buying another season, another year, another stretch of not yet, and you pay for it gladly, in money and in silence, and you tell no one, and you go home to prepare for the fall. You spend a large part of your day on the telephone managing a calendar that is really a map of your standing. Every invitation must be weighed. Accept the wrong one, and you have wasted an evening you can't get back. Decline the right one, and you have insulted someone who keeps a list. There is a season's worth of benefits, openings, and dinners to arrange in the correct order of importance, and the correct answer changes weekly. You are running a scheduling operation with no assistant and no margin for error, and the penalty for a mistake is social, permanent, and unspoken. The telephone is your office and your instrument, and by mid-morning you have it cradled against your shoulder like a violinist who has forgotten the violin was ever separate from the chin. The invitations arrive by mail, thick and engraved, and each one is a small problem to be solved. Whose is this? What does accepting it say? What does declining it cost? Who else will be there? And does their presence raise the evening's value or sink it? You solve these problems all day, in your head, at speed. No one has ever called it work. The conflicts are the hardest part, because the good nights collide. 2 benefits on the same Thursday, and you can only attend one, which means you must choose, and the choice is a public statement about which cause, which hostess, which faction you value more. The woman whose benefit you skip will notice your absence, and count it, and remember, there are exactly 4 acceptable excuses for missing a benefit, and none is true. So you weigh them like a judge weighing sentences, and you attend the one that costs less to attend and skip the one that costs less to skip, and you compose your regrets with the care of a diplomat declining a summit. Miss Ferris, the secretary you share with the calendar, keeps the master book, but the decisions are yours alone, because only you can read the invisible values attached to each name. She can note a date. She can't know that the Pembrokes matter this year and did not last year, or that a certain museum benefit has quietly become the one to be seen at, or that a formerly grand hostess is sliding, and her invitations now carry a faint whiff of decline. That knowledge lives in you, updated hourly, a private ticker of the whole social market. The regrets themselves are an art form, because a declined invitation must never sound like a rejection. You have a repertoire of graceful impossibilities, prior commitments and family obligations and sudden convenient conflicts, deployed with warmth so that the woman you are refusing feels chosen against by fate rather than by you. It fools no one entirely, of course. Everyone speaks the same code. But the code must be honoured, because the pretense of regret is the courtesy that keeps the whole competitive machine from tearing itself apart. And all of it changes constantly, which is what makes it exhausting. A woman rises, and her invitations gain value overnight. A scandal breaks, and suddenly her dinner is one to avoid. A cause becomes fashionable, and everyone must be seen supporting it, until the next cause arrives and the caravan moves on. You can't set the calendar and rest. You must reread it weekly, re-rank everything, adjust to 100 small shifts in a market that never closes, because a woman working last month's rankings is a woman about to make an expensive mistake. By afternoon, your ear is warm and the master book is full, and you have arranged a month of evenings into their precise and defensible order, and it looks, on the page, like a lucky woman's busy social life. It is really a campaign schedule, plotted move by move across a season of shifting alliances, and you plotted it alone, on a telephone, with no title and no salary and no one to tell that it was hard. You set down the receiver. Your neck aches. The invitations for next week are already on the tray. You pack for the summer, which is not a vacation but a relocation of the entire contest to the beach. The apparatus moves with you to the Hamptons, the staff, the clothes, the calendar, the rivalries, all of it reassembled on a lawn instead of an avenue. There is no off-season, only a change of scenery, and a woman who drops out for a summer risks being forgotten, which in this world is a slow kind of death. So you supervise the packing of a life into trunks, and you prepare to do all of it again, in linen, by the sea. The packing itself is a military operation, and you are the general of it. A household does not simply go to the country, it deploys. The summer wardrobe must be assembled, distinct from the city wardrobe, because linen in June says one thing, and wool in June says you have lost track of the calendar. The trunks fill the front hall like crates before a campaign, and Adele works through your lists while you revise them, and the whole apartment takes on the purposeful chaos of an army about to march east on the expressway. Half the staff comes with you and half stays behind, a division that requires its own diplomacy, because the country house needs a cook and a housekeeper and maids, but the city apartment can't be left to fend for itself either. So you split your small kingdom in two, assign the loyalties, settle who outranks whom in the new arrangement, and brace for the fresh feuds that a change of address always breeds. A staff transplanted is a staff renegotiating its entire hierarchy, and you will referee the whole thing again from a wicker chair. The move is vast, precise, and utterly exhausting. The house at the beach is opened like a held breath released, sheets pulled off furniture, shutters thrown back, the salt damp aired out of rooms that have stood closed since Labor Day. It smells of sea and mildew and last summer, and within a day it must smell instead of fresh flowers and lemon polish and money, because the first guests arrive almost immediately, and the country season begins before you have found where anything is. There is no easing in. The contest simply resumes on grass. And it is a contest, unmistakably, because the same women summer here, and they brought their rivalries with them in the trunks alongside the linen. The Hamptons are Manhattan, with better light and worse traffic, the identical hierarchy transplanted to a coastline, the same scoring conducted now over tennis and clambakes and tented lawn parties. You did not escape the competition by leaving the city. You relocated it, at enormous expense, to a place with a nicer view, and the view does not lower the stakes by a single point. The cruelty of it is the word vacation, which other people use and you can't. For the rest of America, the beach is rest. For you, it is the summer front of a year-round campaign, a season that looks like leisure and functions like the office. You will be photographed in your bathing costume with the same care you bring to a ballroom. You will host and be hosted and ranked and watched, all of it under the sun, all of it in the guise of relaxing, none of it actually rest. Even your idleness has a schedule. So the trunks go down to the cars and the small army files out onto the expressway, and you ride east. The house will be full by Friday. The calendar has already reassembled itself in Miss Ferris's book with new addresses. You look out the window at the potato fields giving way to the hedges of the rich, and you feel the particular tiredness of a woman going on holiday to a place where she is not, and never will be, permitted to rest. You attend a tented lawn party by the ocean and discover, unsurprisingly, that the competition simply changed its shoes. The beach clubs and the striped tents are the summer front of the same campaign, with the same women, the same scoring, and the same photographers. The dress code softened, but the stakes did not. Whose lawn, whose tent, whose guests, whose caterer, all of it is tallied exactly as it was in the ballrooms of winter. You are standing on grass in the sunshine, holding a cold drink, fighting a war that took the season off from nothing. The tent is the thing, out here, the way the ballroom was the thing in the city. A great striped pavilion rises on a lawn overlooking the water, and everyone arriving prices it instantly. The size, the flowers, the band tuning inside, The caterer's trucks glimpse discreetly behind the hedge. A summer party is judged as ruthlessly as any winter gala, only now the judging happens in daylight, which is harder, because daylight is the enemy of a maintained face and there is nowhere to hide from the sun. The clothes pretend to be casual and are nothing of the kind. Summer ease is its own strict uniform. The correct linen, the correct sandal, the correct straw hat that costs as much as a winter coat and is designed to look as though it was grabbed on the way out the door. You dress for the beach the way you dress for the ballroom, with a personal shopper and a strategy, because the woman who actually looks casual has failed, and the woman who looks effortlessly, expensively unbothered has won. The effort, as always, must not show. The look is casual, careless, and enormously expensive. The daylight is the real cruelty of the summer front. Under a ballroom's flattering chandeliers you had a fighting chance, but the beach sun is a merciless critic, finding every line the surgeon has not yet addressed, every place the maintenance is due. So you angle yourself, unconsciously, away from the worst of it. You master the hat brim. You learn which side of the tent forgives. A woman conducting a running, quiet battle with the sun while appearing to simply enjoy the lovely afternoon. No one is simply enjoying the afternoon. Everyone is managing the light. Mrs. Sedgwick, whose party this is, moves across her own lawn in pale linen, gracious and triumphant, because a successful summer party is a conquest, and everyone knows it, and you congratulate her with the warm sincerity that costs you a small, precise effort to produce. Her tent is bigger than last year's, her band is better. She has won this round, on her own grass, in front of the right 200 people, and she carries the victory lightly, the way you carry yours when it is your lawn, which it will be, in 3 weeks, when the whole apparatus reassembles at your address. The men are here today, which is the summer difference, drifting in polo shirts at the tent's edges, talking about the market even here, even now, unable to leave it behind for a single afternoon. But they are guests at their own leisure, ornamental in their own way, while the women run the actual event, and the arrangement is exactly as it was in the city, only sunlit. The husbands write the checks and admire the water. The wives produce the summer, party by party, exactly as they produce the winter. So you stand on the lawn with your cold drink, sandaled, sunlit, correct, and you play the summer game with the same care you bring to every other season, because there is no version of the year where you get to stop. The gulls wheel over the water. The band starts up under the tent. Somewhere a photographer is finding faces. You tilt your hat, you find your light, and you step into the party. You follow the season south to Palm Beach, where the same set winters and the same rules apply under palm trees. The estates, the clubs, the charity lunches, and the divorces all relocate here for the cold months, and the overlap between this world and the one you left in Manhattan is nearly total. You will see the same faces at the same kind of events, keeping the same kind of score, and you will dress for it and show up for it because absence is not permitted. The venue is warmer. The surveillance is exactly as thorough as it was up north. The island is small, which concentrates everything, so that the same 200 people orbit the same handful of clubs and estates in a closed loop of lunches and galas that would be exhausting, even if you liked all of them, which you do not. In Manhattan, the sheer size of the city let you occasionally disappear. Here there is nowhere to go. The town is a terrarium, beautiful and sealed, and everyone in it can see everyone else through the glass, all season, without relief. The uniform shifts for the tropics, but the discipline does not. Bright colours now, resort wear, the lighter couture, the good jewels worn even at lunch because the season is compressed and every appearance counts double. You dress for a garden party the way you dressed for a ballroom, because the palm trees fool no one, least of all the women beside you at the buffet, who are pricing your resort dress with the same eyes they used on your winter gowns. The scandals bloom here, in the heat, the way they never quite do in the colder discretion of the north. Something about the island, the compression, the sun, the drinking that starts earlier, loosens things, and marriages that were merely strained in Manhattan come apart spectacularly in Palm Beach. In public, in the clubs, in the courts. You have watched a famous divorce or two play out on this island, full of testimony no one was supposed to hear, and you have learned that the palm trees are witnesses to a great deal the palm trees do not mention. Mrs. Fairbanks, 3 chaises down at the club, is between the 2 acts of exactly such a drama. her marriage cracking in slow motion while she maintains a poolside serenity that costs her visibly more each week. Everyone knows. Everyone is watching. Everyone is kind to her face and merciless the moment she rises for the buffet. And you are kind to her too. And you mean it. And you also can't help calculating what her unravelling means for the seating at the March Gala. The island teaches you exactly how thin your own sympathy runs. The pace, oddly, is more relentless here than in the city, because the season is short and the events are stacked. Lunch and cocktails and dinner and the club, day after day, a compressed festival of appearing. You came south, ostensibly, to rest in the sun, and instead you are busier than you were in November, because a short season means no night off, no quiet week, no gap in which to simply be a person on a beach. The sun is warm, the calendar is airless. You are on vacation and you have never worked harder. So you lie by the pool in the correct dark glasses, tanned and jewelled and impeccably at leisure, watching the sealed little world revolve around you, and you understand that you did not travel 1,000 miles to escape anything. You brought it all with you. The scoring, the surveillance, the fear, the fatigue, packed in the trunks beside the resort wear. The ocean is a different ocean. The game is the identical game, and in April you will fly north again, having rested, allegedly, and prepare for the spring, having never for one southern afternoon been off duty. You love your children, and you see them mostly by appointment, because the daily work of raising them belongs to a nanny and, before long, to a boarding school. The schedule that governs everything else governs this too. There is a scheduled visit, a scheduled photograph, a scheduled holiday, and a great deal of information relayed through staff. You are the mother in the way you are the executive of the household, at the top of an organization chart, present in name and absent in fact. The people who know your children best are the people you pay to know them. Nanny arrives before the children wake and runs the world they actually live in. The meals, the baths, the scraped knees, the nightmares in the small hours. She is a kind, competent and steady Englishwoman named Miss Pruitt, and she loves your children with a steadiness you both admire and quietly resent, because it is her hand they reach for in the dark, her lap they climb into when they fall. Her voice, that means safety. You provided everything in the nursery, except the person the children turn to, and the person they turn to is on your payroll. The day is arranged so that you overlap with your own children in narrow, scheduled windows. A visit to the nursery before you dress for the evening, a formal half-hour when they are brought down, clean and combed, to be admired by dinner guests and then removed before they become inconvenient. You are, to them, a beautiful visiting figure who smells of perfume and appears at the edges of their real life, which is conducted, in full, by Miss Pruitt in rooms you enter as a guest. Then, young, they are sent away to school, which is the custom, and the custom is not questioned. A child of 8 goes off to board and the house grows quieter, and the scheduled windows shrink further to holidays and the occasional visit, and the relayed information thins to a headmaster's letter and a term report. You tell yourself it is what is done, what is best, what every family like yours has always done, and it is all of those things, and it is also the sound of a door closing on a childhood you were present for mainly in photographs. The photographs are a whole institution of their own, because a mother must be seen to be a mother even when the seeing is the entire content of it. You are photographed with the children at the correct intervals, beautifully dressed, arranged into tenderness for the camera, and the images are real and the tenderness is real and the daily absence behind them is also real, and all of it coexists without ever quite meeting. You have a wall of evidence that you were there. The evidence is accurate. It is also, mostly, the record of the times you were there on purpose. What aches on the honest nights is not guilt exactly, but a kind of distance you did not fully choose and can't easily close. The system arranged it this way: the schedule, the staff, the schools, the whole machinery of your class, and you stepped into the machinery like everyone before you, and let it raise your children with your resources in someone else's hands. You are a mother built to a design that keeps her at a remove, and by the time you feel the remove, the children are grown, and the design has done its work. So when they come home for the holidays, tall and slightly strange, more Miss Pruitts than yours, you love them fiercely across the small distance the years have set, and you make the most of the scheduled time, and you do not say the thing you sometimes feel, which is that you would like to have known them the way the nanny knows them. It is too late for that, and it was arranged to be too late, and you smooth your child's hair, and you savour the visit, and you let them go back, because that too is what is done. You sit on a board at a museum or a ballet, and in that room you are not an ornament, you are unpaid management. The institution that treats you as decoration in its galleries depends on you, in its budget meetings, to raise a large share of what keeps its doors open. You solicit, you organise, you deliver donors, and you do the quiet administrative work that no annual report credits to your name. The city's great cultural houses run partly on this labour, performed by women whose only compensation is access. And you are one of the executives no one will ever call one. The board meeting is where the mask slips, briefly, and the work becomes visible, at least to the people in the room. Around the table sit the museum's director, a few grand old trustees, and the women, and it is the women who are handed the actual assignments. Raise this, chair that, reach this donor whose wife you lunch with. The director speaks the language of vision and legacy, and then he turns, quietly, to you and the others, because vision and legacy do not pay the electric bill, and you do. You are good at it, sharp, shrewd, and professionally good, and the museum knows it. You can look at the annual gala's flat numbers and see the 3 donors who are underperforming, and the 2 who could be moved up a tier, and the one who is quietly offended and needs handling. You manage a portfolio of relationships the way your husband manages a portfolio of positions, and yours, if anyone measured it, would show returns that keep a beloved institution alive. No one measures it. There is no bonus, no title, no line on any statement. Dr. Halloway, the director, thanks the board warmly at the end of each meeting for its generosity. And the word generosity does a great deal of quiet work because it recasts your labour as a gift, and a gift asks for nothing back, which is convenient for a museum that gives nothing back. You are working, skillfully, for an institution that has found a way to receive executive labour and pay for it in the currency of belonging, which costs the museum nothing and can't be spent anywhere else. The irony you rarely say aloud is that the same institution that leans on you in the boardroom patronises you in public. In the galleries, at the openings, you are the well-dressed wife, the decorative supporter, the lady on the arm of a donor, and the curators are faintly condescending, and the art historians assume you are there for the champagne. They do not connect the woman in the gown at the opening with the woman who raised 1/3 of the money that hung the show. The 2 of you are the same person. Only one of you gets acknowledged, and it is the ornamental one. And yet you keep doing it, and not only from vanity, because there is something real underneath the arrangement that the arrangement can't quite spoil. You love the place. You believe in the ballet, the paintings, the thing being preserved, and the work you do keeps it standing, and that is a genuine good in the world, whatever the museum declines to call it. You are propping up something beautiful with unrecognized labour, and the beauty is real, and on your better days that is nearly enough, which is precisely what the institution is counting on. So you take your assignments, and you make your calls, and you raise the money, and you attend the opening in the correct gown to be gently patronised by people whose salaries you help pay. You do the executive's job and accept the ornament's credit, because that is the deal on offer and the cause is worth it. And because a woman of your era was never given the other version, the one with a title and a salary and a name on the door. You keep the museum's lights on. The museum calls it generosity. You have long since stopped correcting anyone. You watch a woman you know unravel in the newspapers, and you understand that it could as easily be you. A messy divorce spills into the tabloids, full of testimony about cocaine and infidelity and money, and the same drug that runs through the trading floors runs through these rooms too. The private arrangements of a marriage get read aloud in a courtroom and reprinted for strangers. You send a note, you keep your distance, and you file the whole thing away as a warning, because the glamour is thin and everyone in this circle knows exactly how thin. Her name was everywhere last season, on the best lists, at the best tables, and now her name is everywhere for the opposite reason, in the tabloids, beside words like custody and allegation and settlement. The fall was fast, the way these falls always are. A woman going in a single winter from the centre of the room to a cautionary tale told over lunch. You watched her rise. You are watching her burn. And the speed of the transition is the part that keeps you up, because you know how few steps separate the two. The cocaine is the part no one discusses at lunch and everyone knows about, because it moves through this world as freely as the champagne, the decade's favourite accessory, as common on a Park Avenue side table as on a trading desk. It comes out now in her testimony, in the ugly clinical language of a courtroom, and the same women who shared it with her at 100 parties are suddenly shocked, and grateful it is her name and not theirs in the columns. The hypocrisy is total and entirely understood. What the divorce exposes, in public, is the machinery you all live inside and never name. The prenuptial agreement, argued over by lawyers. The private conduct of both parties, aired. The exact price of a wife, litigated line by line in front of reporters who can't believe their luck. It is your own life, essentially, with the discretion stripped off, and you read it in the paper with the sick fascination of a woman watching a surgeon narrate an operation she is scheduled to undergo herself someday. Mrs. Ostrander, at lunch, is merciless about her, dissecting the whole disaster with a relish that does not quite hide her fear, because Mrs. Ostrander is one bad year from the same headline and knows it. You listen, and you do not join in, and you do not defend the fallen woman either, because defending her too warmly would suggest a fellow feeling that could be noted and remembered. You occupy the narrow, safe silence of a woman who has learned that in this circle even your sympathies must be managed for exposure. What you actually feel under the managed silence is fear and a strange tenderness, because the woman in the tabloids was your friend, or near enough, and you know she is not the monster the columns are making her. Only a person who did what everyone here does and got caught in the machinery when her marriage failed. There, but for the grace of a still solvent husband, go you. You send the private note, warm and brief, because it costs you little and might mean something, and because someday you might be the one hoping for a note. So you fold the paper on her ruin and go on with your season, quieter for a day, more careful for a week, and then, because the machine does not pause, you forget her, mostly, the way everyone will forget you if it ever comes to that. She was a warning, and you heeded it, and the heeding amounts to nothing more than tightening your grip on a rope you were always going to be holding anyway. The glamour is thin. You have always known it was thin, and now you know exactly what is under it, because you watched it happen to someone you liked. You maintain an appearance that is, in large part, financed rather than owned, and you keep the arithmetic of it to yourself. The couturier runs an account. The jeweler loans the important pieces. The look that reads as effortless wealth is assembled on credit, favour, and the assumption that next season will cover this one. Even a first lady of the era admitted to borrowing the clothes and promising to give them back. You are the public face of a fortune, and a real part of that face is on loan, and the whole thing depends on no one ever asking to see the receipts. The couturier's account is the quiet engine of it, a running tab that grows all season and is settled, when it is settled, in large, uncomfortable increments that arrive as a shock even to a rich household. The gowns are ordered against it, one after another, each one necessary, each one worn once, and the number at the bottom of the statement climbs into a figure roughly the size of a small mortgage, which you prefer your husband not to examine too closely on a bad market day. You are dressing on credit, gorgeously, and the whole look is lovely, costly, and quietly borrowed, and the bill is a private weather system that follows you from fitting to fitting. The loan jewels are the same principle taken further, because half of what glitters on you at any given gala is there on the jeweller's optimism, returned at dawn, never truly yours. The famous designers understand the arrangement perfectly, and they participate in it gladly, because a gown on the right back and a necklace on the right throat, photographed at the right benefit, sells more than any advertisement. You are, in a sense, a walking showroom, and the merchandise is loaned to the showroom precisely because the showroom is you. Even the highest woman in the land played this game, and got caught, which told everyone how universal it was. She accepted the loaned dresses and the borrowed jewels, and when it became a small scandal, she explained that of course they would be returned or given to a museum. And the explanation was true and also revealed the machinery, that the appearance of the powerful is frequently financed by the people who profit from dressing them. If she borrowed, everyone borrowed. You certainly do. The fragility of it is what you do not let yourself dwell on. The whole assembled image, the credit, the loans, the optimistic accounts, rests on a single assumption, which is that the money behind you holds. It works beautifully as long as the fortune is sound and the season keeps turning, a system of favour and deferral that lets a woman appear worth more than any liquid sum she controls. But it is a structure built on next season, and next season is a promise, and promises, you have noticed, are only as good as the market that backs them. Monsieur Etienne, who runs the salon's accounts with the discretion of a confessor, never once presses you. because pressing a client is vulgar and, more to the point, unnecessary, since the whole class runs on the same deferral and everyone settles eventually, or is quietly understood to be in trouble when they do not. He extends the credit gracefully and watches the market like everyone else, because the day a husband's fortune wobbles is the day a couturier starts, ever so politely, to worry about the account. So you wear your finance splendor to the next benefit, throat ablaze with loaned diamonds, draped in a gown not yet paid for, a magnificent apparition assembled on credit and optimism and the steady turning of a favourable season. No one can tell. That is the whole art of it. And you smile for the camera in your beautiful borrowed life, and you do not think about the accounts, and you certainly do not think about what happens to a woman whose entire appearance is financed on the assumption of a fortune, if the fortune should ever, on some ordinary Monday, fail to hold. You came from somewhere else, and this world will never quite let you forget it. Perhaps you were a flight attendant, or a model, or simply a girl from a town no one here has heard of, and you married into money that the old families believe should have gone to one of their own. They accept your checks to their charities and question your right to a good table in the same breath. So you spend more, host harder, and dress more perfectly than any of them, because the one thing that might close the gap is being undeniably, exhaustingly the best at the whole performance. The old money can smell where you come from, or believes it can, which amounts to the same thing. There is a particular cool politeness they reserve for the newly arrived, a courtesy with a locked door behind it, and you have learned to feel the door even through the smile. They summer where their grandmothers summered. They inherited their silver and their pews and their assumptions, and they regard your gleaming new fortune the way they might regard a very expensive car parked in front of an old house, impressive, useful, and unmistakably not from around here. So you overcompensate brilliantly and without pause, because the only currency that might buy your way in is sheer undeniable excellence at their own game. Your parties are grander than theirs. Your flowers are better. Your couture is newer and your committees are more efficient and your fundraising totals are frankly superior because you have to be twice as good to be counted half as native. The very effort that the old families sneer at as trying is the effort that keeps you in the room. And you know it, and you keep trying, because the alternative is to disappear. Mrs. Winthrop, whose family has been cool to newcomers since before your fortune existed, took your very large check for the museum with a gracious smile and then, at the same event, mentioned your former profession to a small group in a voice pitched to carry. You heard it. You were meant to hear it. And you thanked her for her support of the cause with a warmth so flawless that she could find no crack in it, because a woman who came up the hard way has developed a composure the inherited ones never needed to build. The irony, which you savour privately, is that you are better at this life than the women born to it, precisely because you had to learn it. They move through it half asleep, coasting on assumptions. You studied it, mastered it, earned every gesture. The most successful hostess of the decade was a flight attendant once, and she conquered New York and Paris both by sheer relentless will, and the old families never forgave her and never stopped attending her parties either. Excellence is its own kind of entry, even when the door is officially closed. Still, there are nights it wears on you, the endless auditioning, the sense of standing slightly outside a warmth you fund but were not born into. You gave up a whole earlier self to be here, a girl with a different name and a different accent and a different set of dreams, and you buried her so thoroughly that some nights you can't quite find her, and you are not sure whether that is a triumph or a small quiet death. The climb cost you something you do not name. It usually does. So you go on spending, hosting, dressing, outperforming the born insiders at their own inherited game, a self-made woman in a world that pretends self-making is faintly vulgar. You will never be fully one of them. You have accepted this, mostly. But you will be undeniable, which is the next best thing and the only thing actually available to you. And on your strongest nights it is nearly enough, this being the best in a room that will not quite claim you, this winning a game whose prize is permission to keep playing. You are going about an ordinary day when the market falls out from under all of it, and the fragility you have been ignoring for years becomes suddenly, sickeningly visible. On a single Monday, the whole edifice drops further in one day than anyone thought possible, and every fortune built on borrowed money is abruptly a question mark. Your standing, your apartment, your entire identity are staked on your husband's balance sheet, and that balance sheet just moved against him without asking. The party does not stop that afternoon, but something underneath it has cracked, and you can feel the draft. The morning began like every other, coffee and the vanity and the calendar, and then the telephone started ringing wrong, too early and too often, and the tone of the voices on it was a tone you had never heard from these people, who are never afraid of anything or never admit to it. By the time the numbers came through, the drop was historic, the largest single-day fall the market had ever recorded, and the men who run the world spent the afternoon watching decades of certainty evaporate in green figures on a screen. Your husband does not come home, of course, but this time his absence has a different weight, because he is not merely at the office, he is at the office on the worst day of his professional life, and the calls that reach you are clipped and grim. You do not fully understand the mechanics, the leverage, the positions, the margin, but you understand the faces, and you understood, the moment the voices changed this morning, that the ground you have been dancing on was never ground at all. It was a market, and markets fall. The strange thing is how little changes on the surface, at first. The benefit that night goes ahead. The women arrive in their gowns, the diamonds glitter, the photographers work the room, and everyone performs cheerfulness with a new and visible effort, because to show fear would be to confess exposure, and no one will confess first. You move through the evening in your finance splendor, smiling, and around you a whole room of women does the same, all of them doing the identical private arithmetic behind the identical public smile. Mrs. Calloway, whose husband was rumoured to be badly overextended, is not at the benefit, and her absence is the loudest thing in the room, noted by everyone and mentioned by no one, because an empty chair on a night like this tells a story too frightening to say out loud. You think of her, at home doing sums that do not come out, and you think, inevitably, of yourself, and of how thin the line is between the woman glittering at the table and the woman too ruined to attend. Tonight you are at the table. That is all you know for certain. All of it, the apartments, the gowns, the standing, the security, rested on nothing more solid than a rising market and a husband's nerve. You staked your entire self on his balance sheet, because that was the only stake a woman of your era was allowed to place. You never controlled the one thing your whole life depended on. You just decorated it beautifully and hoped. So you go home from the benefit in the small hours, past the same doormen, up to the same apartment, and it all looks exactly as it did yesterday, and it is not the same at all. The draft is in the walls now. You sit at the window over the sleeping park, and you do not know, tonight, whether the fortune holds or whether this is the beginning of the end of everything you built your life around, and neither does he, and neither does anyone. The 80s are not over, but you felt them shudder today, and you will not, after this, ever quite believe in the floor again. You watch the men who ran this decade get led, one after another, out of their offices and into the papers, and you learn how much of your own life was borrowed against their names. The prosecutions come, the indictments come, the firms collapse, and titans who seemed permanent are suddenly finished. When a husband is forced out or charged, his wife discovers in the same instant how little of her standing was ever hers to keep. You built a self on top of a name, and now you are finding out, in public, exactly whose name it was. It starts with the arbitrageur, the one who reportedly told a business school audience that greed was, in fact, healthy, and who then pleaded guilty and began naming names to save himself. His cooperation is a thread, and the prosecutors pull it, and the whole gorgeous tapestry of the decade begins to unravel one financier at a time. The junk bond king is indicted next, and his firm, the engine of half these fortunes, slides into bankruptcy, and the men who are masters of the universe start hiring the kind of lawyers who defend rather than acquire. The wives learn the news the way they learned everything, third-hand, late, and incomplete, from a phone call or a newspaper, or a sudden change in the way a room goes quiet when they enter. One week, a woman is chairing the spring gala. The next, her husband's name is in a headline beside the word indicted, and the invitations slow, and the calls are not returned as quickly, and the good table at the restaurant becomes, mysteriously, unavailable, the machine that took years to admit her needs about a week to begin easing her out. Even the King of Wall Street falls, the very grandest of them, forced out of the firm he ran over a scandal at the trading desk, and his wife, the flight attendant who conquered 2 continents and hoisted a Christmas tree by crane, discovers that a social empire, built on a husband's throne, does not survive the husband losing the throne. The parties she gave are remembered now with a faint cruelty. The climb that impressed everyone becomes, overnight, the fall everyone predicted. The higher the woman built, the further the reporters enjoy watching her come down. You watch it happen to women you know, and you feel the ground shift under your own feet because your standing was constructed exactly as theirs was, on a man, a name, a fortune, a position, none of which you controlled and any of which could be taken by a prosecutor or a board or a bad quarter. The whole decade told you your worth was your husband's success, and now the decade is billing you for having believed it, and the bill arrives in the form of a name suddenly worth less than it was, dragging your own down with it. Mrs. Sterling, whose husband was charged in the autumn, is quietly not renominated to the museum board she served for 15 years, and the museum does it gently, with a warm letter about rotation and fresh faces, and everyone understands that a board does not want a defendant's wife raising its money. She raised millions for them. It does not matter now. Her usefulness was always tied to a name that has become a liability, and the institution she served drops her with the same soft efficiency she once used to talk a woman down from a rank she wanted. You were never a principal in your own life, only the most decorated of dependents, and the standing you worked 18-hour days to build was always held in someone else's name. The masters of the universe are being humbled, one indictment at a time, and their wives are being humbled alongside them, discovering in public what the prenuptial agreements always quietly knew. You look at your own husband, still standing, for now, and you do not ask how the firm is doing. You have learned not to want the answer. You sit in a lawyer's office at the end of it all, and find out what the years were worth, in dollars, on a single page. The marriage that looked like a partnership turns out to have been an arrangement, and the arrangement is being settled now according to a document signed long ago. The unpaid labour, the starvation, the performances, the seating charts, the decades of holding a public face together, all of it gets converted into one number by people who were not there for any of it. You gave the whole thing everything, and the everything has just been priced. The office is quiet and expensive, the same hush as the couture salon and the surgeon's suite. Across the table sit the lawyers, his and yours, and the document that has governed your life for decades lies open between them, and they discuss you in the third person, the terms, the assets, the clauses, as though you were a company being wound up, which, in a sense, you are. You listen to your future divided by men, in suits, calm, still, and composed. Because composure is the one asset no lawyer can assign to the other side. The number, when it comes, is large by any ordinary measure and small by the only measure that matters, which is the years. It was fixed long ago, in a prenuptial agreement you signed when the clauses were abstract, and now it is simply the fact of your life, the sum total of what a wife receives when the arrangement ends. It does not include the 18-hour days, the ruined feet, the buried earlier self, the childhoods watched from the edges. Those did not convert. The lawyers only priced the dollars, because the dollars were the only part written down. Some women, at this table, walk away and reinvent themselves entirely, take the settlement and the hard-won knowledge, and build something that is finally, unmistakably their own. A business, a book, a name that belongs to no husband. You have watched one or two do exactly that, turn the ending into a beginning, and prove that the talent was always real and only the title was missing. It can be done. The skills were never the problem. The arrangement was the problem, and the arrangement is over now. Other women simply vanish, edited out of the pages that once tracked their every gown, dropped from the lists, unseated from the restaurants, forgotten by the machine with the same speed it once used to celebrate them. The column that made you can unmake you with silence, and silence is what most of the settled wives receive, a quiet fading from the record, a woman who was the centre of 1,000 photographs becoming, in a season or two, a name people struggle to place. The glamour was never yours to keep, you always half knew it. Miss Ferris is not here, and Adele is not here, and Freddie is not here, and Miss Pruitt is not here, and you notice in the lawyer's quiet office how many of the people who actually knew you were people you paid, and how few of them can follow you into whatever comes next. You are leaving a life staffed by intimates who belong to a different country, and you are leaving it mostly alone, with a number and a composure and a set of skills the world never named. The staff will find new houses, the houses will find new wives. You will find only yourself. So you sign at the end, the way you signed at the beginning, a woman putting her name to a document that decides her future, except that this time you understand exactly what the clauses mean. You gather your coat. You step out of the quiet office into an ordinary afternoon, and you carry with you a settlement, a lifetime of unpaid expertise, and the strange light feeling of a woman who has finally, after decades, been handed back the one thing the whole arrangement withheld, which is herself, and no idea yet what she will do with her. So there you have it. You spent the night rising before dawn to fake a self-running household, starving yourself into a gown you would wear exactly once, walking across Le Cirque to learn your rank from a man named Sirio, dunning your own friends for $20,000 a table, building seating charts like a general diffusing bombs, and going home alone to a table set for two. You arranged a walker to fill your husband's chair, kept a refrigerator running for your perfume, and priced every room you entered before the coat was off. And in the end, you found out what all of it was worth on a single page in a lawyer's quiet office. It sounds absurd, and much of it was. But it is worth remembering that the women behind the diamonds were doing real work, most of it unpaid and none of it named. They raised the money that kept the museums lit and the ballets dancing. They ran households the size of small hotels, managed the fear of being replaced the way other people manage a mortgage, and held a flawless public face together through decades that never once offered them a day off. The glamour was thin, and they knew it was thin, and they kept the whole beautiful, exhausting show running anyway. The Nouvelle society they belonged to faded when the market cracked and the indictments came, the way every gilded thing eventually fades. The crane-hoisted trees and the living paintings under the tents became stories told in divorce depositions, but the women themselves were more than the pages that tracked their gowns, and some of them walked out of it and built something finally, unmistakably their own. Thank you as always for spending this quiet hour with me. There is nothing you need to fix tonight. No table to sell, no rank to defend, no face to hold. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day go soft at the edges. Let the whole exhausting business of being looked at fall away, because no one is looking now and there is nothing left to perform. You have done enough. You have been enough. All along. Sleep well.